An all-new 2020 starts right now.
So this case is such a mess that in the beginning, you don't even have a starting point. Except for Abraham Shakespeare winning the lottery.
I said, you won $30 million. Do not show this to anybody.
But everybody's there saying, give me, let me have.
Women with car full of kids would pull up and say, oh, the Lord led me to you. And I would be like, no, that would be Google Maps, honey.
One of the things that people talk about when they talk about winning the lottery is that it's cursed.
I really would like my old life back where I could walk the streets like a normal person.
But then all of a sudden, things go silent. And nobody knows where Abraham Shakespeare is.
Hey, have you heard from Abe? No, I haven't heard from him. Have you seen him? No, I haven't seen him either.
A lot of people said, well, I think he took his money and wants to get away from all this.
So how many people in Polk County owed Abe Shakespeare money?
Over 20, maybe close to 40.
There are all these people with this web of connections to Abraham Shakespeare, and any one of them might be someone who has a motive to see him dead. We all dream of a moment in life that will instantly change everything. A stroke of luck, and nothing will ever be the same again. That's exactly what happened to a man with the name you will never forget, Abraham Shakespeare.
While Abraham Shakespeare was on a trucking route with his colleague, Michael Ford, they stopped at a convenience store.
Mike Ford, who's the driver, says, you need anything? Abraham, who's staying in the truck, says, yeah, you know, give me 2 quick picks.
Right here at this gas station in a town with a name you just can't make up, Frostproof, Florida. 1 stop, 2 quick pick lottery tickets, one of which would change his life forever. A jackpot worth $30 million.
Hello, Florida. It's Wednesday, November 15th, and here are tonight's winning numbers. 12.
When Abe realized he'd won the lottery, he wasn't even sure it was real. So he brought the ticket to his cousin, Ashley McMillan.
I looked up at him, and I looked at the ticket again, and I looked up at him. I said, you won $30 million. He said, okay, I just wasn't sure. I needed somebody I could trust to tell me that. And I was like, do not show this to anybody else. You go to Tallahassee and cash this in immediately.
News of Abe's win quickly spread across the state of Florida.
It was at this convenience store that Abraham Shakespeare bought the lotto ticket that changed his life.
A Lakeland man is waking up a millionaire this morning. 40-year-old Abraham Shakespeare. He had the winning numbers, and Mr. Shakespeare, I'd like to give you my phone number.
Yeah. He opted to take home the lump sum of $17 million. But then after taxes, he ended up with $12 million.
Still, you know, $12 million is a huge chunk of change for a man with a pretty humble background who came from the central Florida town of Lakeland.
Lakeland is small town feel with a little bit of city in it, beautiful lakes. Areas are quiet, some parts are rural, and it's in between Orlando and Tampa.
And here in Lakeland, Abe lived in a modest neighborhood where many folks struggled to make ends meet.
This is the famous Abraham Shakespeare's ex-home, where he rented and lived.
This is where they lived before.
This is where they lived before he won the lottery. It was set up just like this. Nothing's changed besides painting.
Pretty modest place.
Pretty modest.
Abraham's life has been hard-scrabble for its duration. Abraham dropped out of school. He had been in a little bit of trouble as a youth, nothing major, just little petty theft kind of things. And as he grows older, he takes on a series of odd jobs. Riding the garbage truck for the city of Lakeland, sweeping up in somebody's barber shop.
Abraham had a strong friendship with Greg Smith, who owned the barbershop.
He was working at my barbershop as a cleanup guy, sweeping up and mopping floors. He was a less fortunate person, so let him work, get paid, or buy him something to eat. Abraham was an easygoing person. He took life just as it came.
What kind of guy was he?
He was a humble guy. Humble, respectful. You know, he wasn't a hard ass. He was a good dude. He didn't smoke, he didn't drink, he didn't do dope. He was just trying to survive, trying to make it in the world as most people do, but without being in the limelight of problems and trouble.
Even though he didn't have a whole lot, he was very content.
Abraham has all of this money. He can move anywhere he wants to, but instead, he stays home. He stays in Lakeland.
I think to a lot of people's surprise, Abraham did not go buck wild, as they say, when he got his money. He didn't overindulge.
Abraham says, I want to buy a car. So off me and Abraham went to the car dealership. Abraham walks up on this particular car and he liked it. And I'm like, yeah, Abraham, that's nice, but you know, it's a used car. Used or whatever, it was a gem to him.
He said he would go to Denny's to eat breakfast. He bought a Rolex watch from a pawn shop.
He come to the shop every day, millionaire, come to the shop, sweep the floor.
Yes.
You better not drop a penny on the floor. First thing you're gonna say, you're gonna pick it up, you're gonna say, pennies make dollars.
Abraham doesn't spend much money on himself, but the one thing that he really wants is a new house. So he buys a 5,000 square foot, $1 million mansion.
Prior to winning the lottery, he would walk around this exclusive neighborhood and he would dream about living in one of those homes. He was able to buy his dream home for $1 million in the gated community.
And Abe quickly opened his doors to friends and even strangers. And one of those strangers was Centuria Butler, who was at the time down on her luck when she met Abe at a party he threw at his new house.
At the end of the night, he was like, where are you going? I was like, might be staying in my car tonight. He was like, well, you know, you can stay here until you get on your feet. He literally let me as a stranger move into his house.
A friendship blossomed. Centuria and Abe grew close, and eventually they welcomed a son named Jeremiah.
When the baby is out and they bring him over to the bed, Abraham with his long arms, he swoops in and he takes the baby right out of her hands. And he's holding him. And he's like, yeah, I got my snook and pookum.
But for Abe, it wasn't enough just to provide for his own family. Abe seemingly wanted to help everyone. And pretty soon, his generosity spread throughout Lakeland.
When Abraham won the lottery, all of Lakeland and Polk County won the lottery.
People did not hesitate to come to Abraham and say, you know, I need money for my mortgage. They're going to foreclose on my house. They're going to repossess my car. I've got to bury my mother. Everything you can think of that someone needed.
Now you're dealing with all kind of people you want to look out for and people you don't want to look out for, but everybody's there saying, give me, let me have.
Abraham wins this huge lottery, and then within a day, everyone wants a piece.
I couldn't even talk with him in 10 minutes. His phone was ringing. By the time he get off the phone with that one, another one would call him.
There were days that random women with a car full of kids would pull up and say, oh, the Lord led me to you. And I would be like, no, that would be Google Maps, honey.
It got tiresome to him. He got fed up with it a lot.
I really would like my old life back where I could walk the streets like a normal person, but got people coming up asking for money.
And Abe's fortunes might be about to take an even more serious turn for the worse.
His friend comes forward and says, hey, that's my ticket. All those multi-million dollars, they're mine.
Abraham Shakespeare was on the verge of losing his entire fortune.
When Abe Shakespeare moved into that gated community, he was stepping into his life of luxury as a recent lottery winner. But those gates still couldn't keep people out. Friends, neighbors, even strangers still visited, asking for a favor, a loan, or a handout.
I think it caused him more harm than good. I don't think he enjoyed that money.
It was like I wish I didn't even have no money. He was dead serious.
There's something called the lottery curse. Lottery winners go bankrupt. They are killed, robbed, kidnapped, and scammed till the end of days.
Most people work and struggle to get millions. When it's handed to you, it's an easy come, easy go, and you're open game. And if you're not prepared for it, you're screwed with it.
Abe tried to manage that flood of requests, turning some of those handouts into loans, but this was far from a perfect system.
One of the things that Abraham did was he set up a business venture in which he became the Hood's bank.
But that also meant that he had to make arrangements with them for when they would pay back and how much they would pay back. This was becoming overwhelming.
Abe was giving out money faster than he could keep track of. And then things took an unexpected turn with that coworker on the trucking route, the guy who bought the winning lottery ticket for him, Mike Ford.
Suddenly, there's a lawsuit against Abraham filed by Mike Ford, who is claiming that Abraham stole the tickets.
I was able to immediately get in contact with him. He was upset because he thought that Michael Ford was a friend.
To defend himself, Abe brought in a high-profile attorney named Willie Gary.
Willie Gary is a force, very self-confident. Willie has a private jet. He drives around in Rolls Royces. He wears, of course, custom-made suits.
Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen.
Mike Ford's claim was that Abraham had gone into his wallet, had taken the lottery ticket. Abraham denies that he ever stole that ticket.
In response to the lawsuit, Abe alleged it was never about a stolen ticket. It was about a demand for $1 million.
Abe's claim was that Mike basically went to him saying, hey, I want $1 million. And Abraham said, I'm not giving you any money. And that's when Mike said, well, I'm going to sue you.
Ford has a different account. He says that when he asked Abraham about the ticket, Abe offered him $1 million, but later refused to pay, saying Ford couldn't prove the ticket was his.
Ford versus Shakespeare was a 5-day trial. Michael Ford did his best to present his case, but the jury only took an hour to find against him.
It was a battle over millions in that courthouse, but in the end, he got to keep all of his money. And then he met someone. He met someone who promised to help him, who promised to protect his fortune, to secure his future. Was Abe's luck finally turning around?
A woman named Doris Moore, they called her Dee Dee, Florida-born, very ambitious, pretty smart. She comes along.
In fall of 2008, Dee Dee goes to this small business conference where she meets the realtor who sold Abraham his $1 million mansion.
And she thought it would be cool to write a book about his life.
Dee Dee is introduced to Abraham, and he agrees to let her profile him.
She wanted to sit down and interview us for her book.
Dee Dee Moore seemed like she was a very professional woman. She was in a suit and heels and hose and everything, and said that she owned a company, American Medical Professionals.
Dee Dee Moore is a self-made businesswoman, a very successful businesswoman with a medical staffing company.
And the more time Dee Dee spent around Abe, the more involved she became, not just as an author, but also as an advisor.
She learns that he has all this money out there in the community. She said, you need a financial advisor, you need some financial help. I am an expert at that. The next thing you know, Dee Dee is Abraham Shakespeare's sidekick and his emissary who goes around to collect money.
She had her own money. She didn't need his money. And that became a trust factor for him.
He's like, you know, she has her own business. She, you know how to run things. She gonna help me with my LLCs.
Dee Dee wasn't just helping Abe with his money. She also started recording their conversations, capturing these behind-the-scene moments where, even with her help, he still appeared to be fed up.
Do you get tired of people asking you for money all the time, Abe? Give me your opinion on it.
I've been tired. A year ago.
All of a sudden, things go silent, and nobody knows where Abraham Shakespeare is.
None of his children had heard from him. His mother hadn't heard from him. Nobody had heard from him.
And just like that, Abraham Shakespeare disappeared. No calls, no goodbyes, not a word to the people he loved. It was like he vanished into thin air. Abraham Shakespeare seems determined to shake that lottery curse, especially after his generosity cost him almost all of his jackpot millions. Now he's fighting to get his finances back under control.
Everything was well, and then it got quiet all of a sudden.
In April of 2009, there's a stir going on in the community about nobody having seen Abraham Shakespeare in a while. A little buzz at first, and then it gets louder and louder and louder and becomes a thing.
People start to talk, hey, have you heard from Abe? No, I haven't heard from him. Have you seen him? No, I haven't seen him either. And that kind of started to snowball when everybody started to realize, you know, I haven't heard from him either.
And so at what point did you notice that Abe might have gone missing?
When I would call, he would always answer me or respond back. And when I didn't get that, then it began to make, somewhat of a red flag.
There was this widespread speculation around Lakeland that Abe finally just got fed up with all these people thinking that he should share his fortune with everyone. And as a result, he decided to skip town.
It was common knowledge that Abraham said that he got tired of people asking him for money.
I really would like my old life back where I could walk the streets like a normal person.
When nobody's seen him, for the first couple months, we were like, okay, you know, he did say that he was gonna go away for a while and just let things, you know, kind of die down and chill, and then he was gonna come back.
And friends say Abe had a very good reason not to skip town for good. Even though Abe and Centauria at this point were no longer living together, Centauria says Abe was still a devoted father to their son, Jeremiah.
He was just like so excited about being a father, and he would take a picture every day.
Finally, in November of 2009, almost 6 months since Abe disappeared, Abe's cousin, Cedric Edom, decides to file a missing persons report at the Polk County Sheriff's Office.
Abraham's cousin, Cedric Edom, reported him missing to our missing persons unit, and that's where the whole investigation started.
But the investigation gets off to a slow start. Lots of people are still convinced that there's an innocent explanation for Abe's disappearance.
A lot of people said, well, I mean, I don't think he's missing. I think he took his money and wants to get away from all this.
One of Abe's friends, Judy Hagans, even told the police Abe had mentioned leaving the country.
Did he ever discuss any intricate plans with you that, hey, I'm going to disappear and nobody's ever going to see me again?
Yeah,
and
he did.
What was that about? Tell me.
He really wanted to move to Jamaica.
Still, there was an aspect of Abe's disappearance that puzzled some of his friends and family members. All of a sudden, they started receiving these random text messages from him.
All of these people that Abraham would normally just pick up a phone and talk to or stop by to see were getting text messages.
So at this point, there are a bunch of people coming out of the woodwork who are saying that they've heard from Abe.
Right.
I got a text at one point.
And what did that text say?
He was out and just didn't want to be bothered.
And the mother of his child?
Centauria, She received a text message saying he was going on vacation and leaving her for another woman.
I'm texting Abraham and I'm getting texts back, oh, I'm leaving you for this woman and we're going to the Bahamas.
I got a reply from his number. And the reply was, I don't need nobody filing no missing persons report on me. I'm fine.
But Ashley and others close to Abe say they had some serious doubts about whether he was actually the person sending those texts, even though they were coming from his phone.
I knew that wasn't my cousin. This is not Abraham texting me.
There's no way that he could have constructed those text messages because Abraham Shakespeare could barely read and write. In fact, his cousin, Ashley McMillan, used to read him the greeting cards here at this Walgreens where she used to work.
Before he won the lottery, he was always buying Hallmark cards. He was like, hey, can you come read this card to me? I need something that conveys like empathy or sympathy. I asked him one time, I was like, why can't you just read the card? And he looked at me dead square in the face and was like, I cannot read.
It was so suspicious as people were getting text messages because he couldn't read or write. And if it wasn't Abraham, who were the text messages coming from?
That was one of the biggest hurdles we had in the beginning of the case, was nailing down when the last time not only was Abraham seen, but when someone physically and actually talked to him on the phone.
So this case is such a mess that in the beginning, you don't even have a starting point.
Every time we would talk to someone, they had heard something different. It just seemed like every story was leading back to Dee Dee Moore. And so we're just like, okay, we've got to talk to Dee Dee Moore because this lady Dee Dee is associated to every story that we're being told.
For Abe's friends and family, it makes sense that if anyone knows where he is, it would be Dee Dee. I mean, after all, she has been working closely with him to get his finances in order.
As their friendship began to blossom, Abraham and Dee Dee Moore hung out quite a bit. She became a major asset to him by helping Abraham collect on money that was owed to him.
Everybody was very uncertain. Dee Dee had an answer.
When police interviewed Dee Dee about Abraham's whereabouts, she says nothing's wrong. In fact, I'm in constant contact with him.
Her statement was that she talks to him all the time. If we wanted to see him, she would make sure that she brought him to us. So she sends him a text message in front of us and it's like, Abraham, call me, please call me. We wait a little bit and nothing. And she's like, well, I'll call you in the morning as soon as we hear from him. We'll set up a meeting. So we left.
Although Dee Dee can't actually connect police with Abe on the phone, she is able to show them that video that she'd taken of Abe where he says he wants to skip town.
So where do you want to go to?
It don't matter to me. I'm not a picky person.
Are you going to miss your home?
Yep, I miss it, but life goes on.
Weeks go by and there's no word from him, and suspicion begins to mount. But then this startling development. Out of the blue, Abe's mother, Elizabeth Walker, is having dinner at a Cracker Barrel and
Elizabeth's phone rings. And she opens her phone and sees it's Abraham calling. And she said, oh my God, it's Abraham.
Abraham Shakespeare is reported missing on November 9th. Most of his friends and family say they have not seen him or heard his voice since April. Is there a chance at this point in the investigation that Abe Shakespeare might just turn up somewhere?
I think we thought that was a real true possibility. Once we put him in the national database as missing, we got calls from all over the United States, and some of them with super confidence that it was Abraham. And it wasn't him, but we had to deal with a lot of that.
With all of these empty leads, investigators are now looking at other angles.
So there's a whole pool of potential individuals that you could look at with some sort of motive if his disappearance did, result in foul play.
We certainly hope Abraham's alive and well, and he has successfully hidden himself away. But our investigation doesn't lead us to believe that at this time.
At this point, detectives are not only concerned that lottery winner Abe Shakespeare might be missing, they're concerned he might be dead. So how many people in Polk County owed Abe Shakespeare money?
Over 20, maybe close to 40.
And so some of them would probably not be so upset if he never appeared again.
That was the problem, is that there was a lot of people that owed him money.
But investigators aren't particularly interested in a man who had claimed that Abe owed him something.
Presiding, please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. Again, if you have a cell phone.
Michael Ford lost a lawsuit to him, claimed the winning lottery ticket was his, went all the way to a trial. He's probably pissed off.
$30 million of upset.
Michael, we're up here talking to you about Abraham Shakespeare. How do you know that name?
Because I went to trial with him for a lotto ticket.
Okay.
And at no time did you see Abraham Shakespeare while you were in Florida? And just for the record, you didn't in any way harm, hurt, or cause Mr. Shakespeare to be missing at this time, did you?
No, sir.
We actually pulled his phone records to confirm that where he was, and he was in Georgia. I mean, we looked at him that hard, but it was more of an elimination thing.
Well, detectives have a long list of possible suspects to go through. Marissa Green at the Ledger in Lakeland is focused on one person, Dee Dee Moore.
I felt like I had a vested interest in finding Abraham Shakespeare, just like the detectives. A couple of weeks before it was officially announced that Abraham Shakespeare was missing, I met Dee Dee Moore over the phone for the first time. She promised that she could produce him and I could interview him, but that never happened, and it went silent. And so that's when my red flag started to raise about this woman and who she was.
Then in December 2009, Marissa is able to convince Dee Dee to come down to the Ledger newsroom for an interview with her and her editor, Lyle McBride. Dee Dee tells them that at the time Abe disappeared, most of his lottery jackpot was long gone.
And he didn't have any money left, really.
Right, except for what he was collecting, the regular
The few
little
that were
loans.
paying him
The
back.
few that were paying him back, that's what he was living off of, because everything else was froze. Because all his other money was tied up.
She said everybody else was taking advantage of him, but not her, because she had her own money.
That's the kind of person I am. If you've asked my family and my friends, I've been that way my whole life. I always helped people.
During that 3-hour interview, Dee Dee now tells a different story. Now, she insists that Abe left town to avoid having to pay money in the child support fight he is supposedly having with the mother of his son, Centoria Butler.
And so he was very upset and adamant that he would rather spend 179 days in prison, if they find him, than to pay her anything.
There was never a plan to go to court to get child support. I never attempted to go to court to get child support. That was the end of the story.
So during the interview, we played good cop, bad cop, and I was the bad cop. I was the one asking the hard questions of Dee Dee Moore.
Where is Abraham? Well, Abraham knows he was supposed to go for contempt of child support, okay? And
that's the question I asked. Where is Abraham?
I do not know. And I told the cops this. I do not know his address. I didn't want to know because of the fact that we knew he would have a warrant out for his arrest.
That interview with Dee Dee Moore at the Ledger, it ends without any new information regarding Abe's whereabouts. But then a month and a half after he was reported missing, there's a surprising turn of events involving Abe's mother, Elizabeth Walker.
Dee Dee befriended her. And they're having dinner together one night. The phone rings. And it's Abraham. Hi, Mom, I love you. "Oh, baby, I miss you. Where are you? I can't hear you. It's so loud. I can't really hear you, but I'll be home soon. I love you. I love you too." And that's the end of the call. Dee Dee says, "Oh my God, you know, he called you. See, he's okay." And Miss Walker appears to be relieved, but not quite sure, because Abraham sounded different.
Abe's mom is suspicious.
She was suspicious, didn't think it sounded like her son, but in the back of her mind, maybe he really does have a cold, maybe he's really sick.
Turns out the police are able to trace that phone call, and it leads them not to Abraham Shakespeare, alive and well, but to a very different person.
We had that 30-day location tracker on the phone, so we pulled it up, and it's at the Lakeland Mall.
Will that phone call help cops unravel the mystery of what really happened to Abe Shakespeare? Three weeks after Abe Shakespeare's disappearance is reported to police, the full attention of investigators is now on Dee Dee Moore. She was supposed to have been his financial savior, but they've discovered that she has taken over his lottery fortune. What did you see when you looked into his finances?
Abraham didn't have access to a penny of his money. Dee Dee had not only taken over all of his banking accounts, she had transferred money out of the banking accounts.
Dee Dee tells Abraham that for his benefit, he needs to sign over his assets, and so that she can have control of those assets. That's the way she can protect him from anybody coming after him for any money.
She was now living in his house. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what would make her want to live in this man's house?
Once we were going deep into the investigation, we tried to find out everything we could about Dee Dee, and we found out, you know, she wasn't who she portrayed herself to be.
Dee Dee Moore's got a checkered past. She's been in trouble with the law before. She's no angel.
After graduating from Plant City High School in Florida, Dee Dee was eventually able to start up that medical staffing company. But she had her share of run-ins with the law, a no-contest plea for petty theft in 1999, and a guilty plea for check fraud back in 2002. There was also one incident where she falsely claimed she was carjacked after falling behind on her vehicle payments.
So she drives the SUV down a dark country road one night, and two Latino men, this is her story, hijack her SUV, tie her up, rape her, beat her, and throw her on the side of the road, and take off with the SUV. Long story short, she had hired these guys to take the car and hide the vehicle from everybody.
Dee Dee was convicted of insurance fraud. And that background raises a lot of eyebrows among detectives investigating Abe Shakespeare's disappearance.
She definitely has the ability to manipulate, to lie, to concoct stories and so forth, yeah.
We were really convinced that Dee Dee definitely had more information, and we wanted to push some buttons with Dee Dee.
So police pressed Dee Dee for answers about how she's taken over Abe's finances.
You are in essence Abraham, correct? Yes. But my point in all of this is all of these people plus all of the real estate comes up to how much?
But you've got to...
No, comes up to how much, Dee Dee? I don't know. Comes up to how much? So, okay, so I've done the rough math, okay? It comes up to almost $3.5 million.
Okay, if I'm guilty of anything, I'm guilty of helping him avoid child support.
I'm not worried about any of that.
Investigators may have their suspicions about Dee Dee, but what they don't have is any hard evidence tying her to Abe's disappearance. Meanwhile, Dee Dee turns to the media to plead her side of the story.
Because of these people. Are you talking about your meeting with the cops?
Yeah.
Because of these people, my life has been turned up in the last 2 weeks. All my house has been looked over twice. They've looked through all my papers. They took my computers and downloaded their hard drive. I want this out of my life. And I feel sorry for Abraham. But it has hardened my heart. I don't know if I'll ever help anybody out anymore.
Then 8.5 months after Abe's disappearance and just a couple of days after Christmas, there's a development that sends this case in a dramatic new direction.
The thing that really turns the case was when Elizabeth Walker got that call from her long missing son. Dee Dee Moore was at dinner with Elizabeth Walker when Abraham called.
Abraham's mother called me, and she's like, Detective Clark, Abraham called me and told me Merry Christmas and that he's okay. But she said, it didn't really sound like my son. And I said, what number did that call come from? And she's like, it said private.
It didn't take long for them to look at phone records.
Investigators quickly learned two very critical pieces of information. First, that number is not Abraham Shakespeare's. Second, someone with that phone itself is located very close by, a local mall. So they rush to that local mall to figure out who it is. And incredibly, at almost the same moment they drive in, so does Dee Dee Moore.
And then in drives Dee Dee. It's like a gift from God dropped to us. Crazy. We watch her get out, meet with this guy, hand him a wad of cash.
And this was just, you know, stinking the high heavens.
They talk for a minute, she gets in her car, and she drives away to the north, and this car with this gentleman in it drives away to the south. So we get behind the car, we're following it, and we're like, let's stop it. We go to stop the car. So I just jump out, I go to the guy and I go, you can either park your car, get in our car and come with us, or we're gonna try to put you in prison the rest of your life. And he goes, well, I guess I'm coming with you.
The man in the car, the man who got the cash from Dee Dee and who owns the phone that made the call to Abe's mom, he is none other than the friend of Abe's who ran the local barber shop, Greg Smith.
Do you know Dee Dee Moore? That's what they asked me. Now I'm thinking to myself, Lord Jesus, what is going on? You know, did you make a phone call to Abraham's mother? I said, yeah. Well, I make the phone call to his mother, pertaining to be Abraham. I'm supposed to mimic his voice and the way he talked best I can and tell his mom that I'm okay.
Said she's gonna pay me $350. I didn't feel right about it, but I thought I was helping Miss Walker feel better because she's been worried about her son. Greg told them then, I think that Abraham is dead. They said, we think so too. And they said, you know, we need you to keep meeting with Dee Dee because we think she has something to do with this. And we need you to work for us.
And I'm thinking to myself, man, when I needed this man stepped in and helped me.
And the reality of what's at stake sinks in for Greg Smith.
The light click on, okay. She actually is under investigation for killing Abraham Shakespeare. I was like, you know, I'll do what I can.
And so begins an elaborate plot to take down Dee Dee Moore and prove her involvement in Abraham Shakespeare's disappearance. Now, this is going to involve not only an undercover sting, a can of Red Bull, but also a discovery made right in this yard. For Abraham Shakespeare, the good news is you've won the lottery. That's also the bad news.
As of this time, we don't know the whereabouts of Abraham Shakespeare.
Detectives are not only concerned that Abe Shakespeare might be missing, they're concerned he might be dead.
We've got to talk to Dee Dee Moore because everybody is bringing her name up. Whatever story they had, everything just kept circling back.
They're saying that I took a gun and killed another human being.
what they need. They need the evidence.
But I guarantee you, Ronald has killed him.
We're like, Ronald? We've never heard of a Ronald.
She kept saying, Ronald killed him. Ronald shot him.
Why are you laughing?
Because
a man is dead. He's been murdered.
I liked Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. There are so many things that proves my innocence.
Do you understand how listening to you is bewildering?
Well, do you understand how listening to you is just, it sounds like a bunch of stupidity?
Hello, Florida. It's Wednesday, November 15th. New York Knights winning numbers.
Abraham Shakespeare won $31 million in the Florida lottery, going from rags to riches.
But as happens to so many lottery winners, Abe is besieged by people asking him for some of that cash.
I really would like my old life back where I could walk the streets like a normal person, but got people coming up asking for money.
Everybody feels that's their opportunity to get paid.
But then he suddenly disappears.
But no one has seen Shakespeare, including his mother, who's beginning to think the lotto prize may have been a curse.
Yeah, I'm just hoping to hear something.
There is contact. Family and friends receive text messages from Abraham. In fact, his own mother gets a phone call from Abraham.
I answered the phone. I said, hello?
Upon further investigation, detectives learned that the voice was Greg Smith, the owner of the barbershop where Abraham would work.
I was like, Mom, how you doing? This Abraham.
Greg claims he faked that call at the request of a woman named Dee Dee Moore, who was helping Abe with his finances, and the police start investigating her.
Despite running a legitimate business, Dee Dee Moore has a checkered past. She's been in trouble with the law before.
Greg decides he does not want to go to jail, so he helps investigators with their case. And one way that he does it is by becoming a confidential informant.
I didn't set a plan out to go catch up. I just told him I'd see what I could do.
I'm getting ready to talk to Dee Dee. She's getting in the car now.
When I interviewed Greg Smith back in 2012, he showed me how he secretly recorded conversations with her using something he called a catch can, which he invented himself.
It's a Red Bull can.
Look at that thing. I wouldn't figure out how it opens even.
It actually separates in between.
Oh yeah? Wow. That's brilliant.
That's the Dee Dee Moore catch can.
I worked undercover narcotics for 8 years, and I wouldn't have came up with this. Almost all of the meetings were in a car. Here it is sitting in front of her. She doesn't even know it's there.
Well, they'll never know about you anyway. I'll never give you up. You know what I'm saying?
Ever.
Man, listen, I'm so deep in it with you right now. If you go down, I go down right now.
Yeah.
It was ingenious, but he even took it a step further. He would be smoking small cigars as they talked. So that she wouldn't get suspicious, he would make it a point to flick ashes on or into the can as they were talking.
Pretty simple trick, but it worked good, and it gave us a good recording of the car.
I just need some time to get freaking Abraham back.
Dee Dee is recorded telling Greg that Abe is alive. After she had asked Greg to make that fake call to Abe's mom, Dee Dee now asks him to call someone else to continue spreading the news that Abe is okay.
Should I say that he talked to his mom?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's gonna make him more convincing.
But he told her if she tells anybody, he'll never call back. Okay. You make sure you say that.
That sounds a little bit more convincing.
Say that if she tells anybody, Abraham told her he would never call back.
What's up, Dee Dee?
Greg later reports back to her that the call went well.
So
you tell him, yeah, he's still living.
I said, yeah, he's still living. I said, if anybody want to know if he's still living, yeah, he's still living.
At one point, the investigation moves to a local hotel where Dee Dee Moore and Greg Smith meet.
So Dee Dee and Greg go to the hotel to follow up that fake phone call with a fake letter?
Yes, they did.
These rooms is expensive.
We're listening as they're in the hotel.
That's not the same laptop you had, is it? You went and bought that today?
Here comes a brand new laptop, and a brand new printer. But she is very paranoid now about leaving any traces that can be taken back to her.
So she's dressed in full hospital gown, gloves, face mask, hair, so that while she's typing, that none of her DNA gets on the paper or gets on the envelope or anything.
She is determined. You will not find any Dee Dee Moore DNA here.
Chocolate, I don't want you to show this letter to the cops. I just want you to tell them that it was me.
They spent about 2 hours composing this letter to Abe's mother, with Greg offering suggestions to Dee Dee about how Abe would actually talk.
And we're down there laughing because Greg's like, no, maybe you should say bro instead of brother.
If I had to take this letter here, and I had to read this letter, and I had to understand this letter, the letter is convincing to me. It couldn't have came from you.
How do you do it to anybody, but how do you do it to a 70-plus-year-old woman who hasn't seen her son in months? I mean, devious, manipulative, evil.
He puts it in the mailbox, he leaves, I take the letter out of the mailbox and put it in evidence.
Remember, those close to Abe knew that he could barely read or write. I mean, this is a copy of the letter.
Yeah.
And for a guy who, even though his name was Shakespeare, I mean,
right.
He didn't write. This is like 6 or 7 pages.
Exactly.
I only wrote you just in case you really worried, just in case you can't keep this to yourself and you're really worried about me. Here's a Christmas present to you.
The letter is more like a treatise about everything that Abraham would be trying to explain to his mother about why he went away and what hassle he went through once he got all the money, and how sometimes he wishes he didn't have all this money, but that he's doing okay and he's trying to stay away and get his life together. I mean, it went on and on and on for pages.
But what Dee Dee Moore does next will remove all doubt Abraham Shakespeare is not okay at all.
With a body, I can do a plea deal with him.
What do you want?
50 grand.
If you do this, you're going to be a very popular person. You're going to be a legend.
By this point, all of the law enforcement officers' instincts are firing on code red. They feel that Dee Dee Moore knew what happened to Abraham Shakespeare. What they need the evidence.
So at one point, you ask the sheriff to hold a press conference.
As of this time, we don't know the whereabouts of Abraham Shakespeare.
And at that point, the sheriff says, hey, we think that Abe Shakespeare may have been met with foul play.
We suspect that he's met an untimely death.
He also names Dee Dee Moore as a person of interest.
I must tell you, folks, that certainly it is fair to call Dee Dee Moore a person of interest.
After that press conference, I believe she felt the walls closing in on her.
So immediately she calls Greg Smith. We've got to do something. Did you see what Sheriff Judd's saying about me?
And that's when the next phase of the case begins, convincing Dee Dee that if Abe is actually dead, to admit what really happened.
They come up with this idea that they will get a fall guy who will say, you know, I'll take the blame and say that I killed Abraham Shakespeare.
We call a guy named Mike Smith. I mean, he's just a very large, intimidating fella, and one of the best undercover guys I've ever worked with.
And his last name happened to be Smith, the same as Greg Smith, and they pretended to be cousins.
So we tell Greg, we just want you to tell her that you have a cousin that's going to prison. If there happens to be something wrong with Abe, I bet for the right amount of money, he'll take a murder rap.
And I said, I know somebody. I got a cousin finna do 25 years that'll take that rap. Yeah, I got somebody.
Here's the deal. I went and talked to him. He said, okay, I'll do this.
When can I talk to him?
She reacted way more than we expected. She immediately says, I want a meeting. I want to meet him as soon as possible.
So soon after, they arrange a face-to-face meeting in another parking lot in Lakeland.
I pulled in right about this area here.
Okay.
And parked. She comes over, he jumps in the back seat, she jumps in the front.
Hello.
Hello.
All right, this is my baby right here. You gotta take care of her.
He introduces us. We talk, small talk, briefly for a couple minutes.
Who does she think that you are at this point?
At that point, Greg had sold a story to her that I was a drug dealer. I was just a drug dealer. She knew I was just drug dealer. They got busted by the feds that was going away, that was willing to take the rap.
Yeah, I'm in over my head. I've never been through nothing like this in my life.
The meeting is taking place in a undercover vehicle that we had equipped with listening devices and recording devices.
And what was Dee Dee's demeanor like in the car? Was she twitchy? Do you think
she was all chipper, just normal. I believe the question was, why would you take the rap?
Why would you do that, though, for me?
I'm going anyhow. I'm going anyhow.
Well, I can tell you, if you do this, you're going to be a very popular person. You're gonna be a legend, and probably on the Oprah show.
When I told her, I said, I got busted by the feds, man. I'm gonna go do 25 years. I need the money to leave to my baby mama so she can take care of my child.
What do you want?
50 grand.
Okay. Can I do it in payments? Because I don't have that kind of cash. I'm gonna have to sell some.
I'm gonna need 10 up front. Once I do this, make sure my boy get the money.
Okay.
But that's not enough. You feel like you need more out of her.
I felt like I needed more out of her. I felt like we needed a body. Like I said, I'm gonna need a body. Probably can get a plea deal with them, because they definitely gonna want a body.
Okay.
And then Mike tells her, wherever the body is, I want to move it, because if I'm going to confess to this, I'm going to make it my own. And she brings up, there's a guy named Ronald, a drug dealer.
If you take the rap, he is not going to show up. And I guarantee you, Ronald has killed him. I just know it.
We're like, Ronald? We've never heard of a Ronald.
And Ronald's the one he owed the money to?
Yeah, they were doing a drug deal. No, I think Ronald killed him for the money Abraham had on him. Abraham had a ton of cash on him, like the tune of $800,000.
This is a huge development. Whoever Ronald is, Dee Dee has just admitted for the first time that she knows that Abe is dead.
That's the biggest moment of the case. That's where we know 100% he's dead. I mean, for us, couldn't have been a bigger moment than that right there.
She kept saying, Ronald killed him. Ronald shot him. I said, well, where's the body, Dee Dee? You get with Ronald, ask him. Ronald can tell us body at. That way when I plead deal with, I can tell them the body is right here and they will dig him up.
Okay.
And they'll have a body.
Okay.
Get with Ronald, find we need to know.
Okay.
I'll back up my boy.
Okay. I'll do it.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
It was nice meeting you.
The next morning, Dee Dee calls Greg and says, we need to meet and make it quick.
Dee Dee wants Mike Smith to be able to confess as soon as possible so that the investigators will stop looking at her.
Do you think that they're watching all the properties and all the friends' properties I have?
He goes and meets Dee Dee, and Dee Dee hands him a towel. There's something wrapped in the towel, and she tells him, this is the gun that was used to kill Abraham.
We're gonna grind then we put his handprints on it, and we'll put it somewhere.
So she handed over her gun to you.
Exactly.
She trusted you that much that she handed you the murder weapon.
Exactly.
She asked him to meet him back at the same spot later in the night. She would show him exactly where the body was.
This is the perfect time.
Plant City.
We'll call me in Plant City.
Yeah.
All right.
We set it up for her to take me to the body now.
Just like I figured, the body's still on that property. We're moving the body tonight.
Dee Dee thinks that once Greg and his cousin dig up the body, she's going to be home free. But she has no idea what is actually about to happen next. Not long after Dee Dee meets with the man who she believes will take the rap for killing Abe Shakespeare, she's driving along this road with Greg Smith, heading to a property she owns on the outskirts of Lakeland.
So Highway 60, it's considered a rural area of Hillsborough County. There's a lot of tomato fields, strawberry farms, and so forth.
You feel like you're in the country. Dee Dee's property has 2 ranch-style houses that are several yards apart.
They parked over in this house. We're just kind of on the side of the road with our lights off. She walks Greg right here. There was a 30-foot by 30-foot concrete slab.
Concrete slab in the middle of a field?
Yeah. And she takes a piece of angle iron and sticks it in the corner of the slab and sticks it down in there and says, dig. Abraham's body's right there.
It's right here. It'll be 9 foot. It'll be 9 foot deep.
And you're listening to this. You guys must be just going nuts at this point.
I think once we heard that, we both look at each other and go, wow, let's just hope this isn't another Dee Dee spin or scam on things.
We didn't know if we actually had the body down there or not.
As authorities begin this arduous work to uncover what's below ground, they simultaneously set up their next tactic for Dee Dee. A few hours later, investigators have Greg call her again. He says, there's a big problem. When we went to dig up the body, the place was swarming with cops. Dee Dee's response? Meet me at the mall.
Greg and Dee Dee then meet when all of a sudden, boom, the cops pull up. They jump out and they bust Greg.
I'm sure she's thinking that we're arresting Greg for the murder of Abraham. So she's composed and says she wants to come back and talk to us and let us know some things.
Okay, so you get her in here. That's you.
That's me.
Okay, who is this guy?
Gregory Smith.
Gregory Smith.
That's who I know him as.
Okay.
Abraham introduced me to him.
She first says, hey, I'm glad y'all got that guy, Greg. I think that he's done something to Abraham.
Find out what he knows, because he knows where Abraham's at.
And so I let her go on for a few minutes, and I said, look, Dee Dee, I got some bad news for you.
I think you know where I'm going with this, Dee Dee. The gig is up, okay? The gig is up. Listen, everything that you've told him, everything you've done, everything is recorded, Dee Dee. Everything is recorded.
Finally see her demeanor change. She rests her head on her hand.
We talk to him 10 times a day. We know every move you make. We know everything.
Dee Dee Moore is caught pretty much red-handed.
I want a deal, and I won't give you the person's name.
Dee Dee at various times blamed everybody under the sun for killing Abraham.
He gave me the name of the person that did it.
And here she goes into the whole Ronald, some random drug dealing guy.
I honestly don't know the guy's name. I know him by Ronald.
So it's Greg Smith, it's Ronald, it's Mike Smith, the undercover.
The undercover, it's her son, it's Cedric Edom.
Everybody else.
Crazy, crazy.
Police say there is zero evidence that any of those people were actually involved.
Dee Dee, you've said so many things you can't even keep your head straight.
Okay, well,
listen. Who shot Abraham?
You know who.
No. Who shot Abraham?
You know who shot him.
Authorities allow her to leave because without a body, they didn't have a case to arrest her.
Meantime, back at Dee Dee's property in Plant City, a team has assembled to attempt to find the evidence they need to actually arrest her.
We're talking probably 30, maybe 40 folks. This is definitely not a run-of-the-mill scene. The concrete slab was like a 900 square foot tombstone.
We've got a 30 by 30, 9-inch thick concrete slab that we've got to bust up.
On day one, there was nothing found. They kept digging, and digging.
This is a painstaking task. This is 2 inches at a time, sifting through everything.
This was almost an archaeological dig here.
It was. I mean, every quadrant, everything, just so we didn't miss anything.
And at a point, once we hit about 9 feet, we started to uncover what appeared to be human remains.
You were able to look at this corpse and you knew it was Abraham.
You didn't need
I
DNA?
didn't need fingerprints, I didn't need DNA. I mean, of course we did that, but I looked and there's Abraham.
Investigators from Polk and Hillsborough counties announced a discovery tonight.
We have recovered human remains.
The media was doing a stakeout to try to get reaction from Dee Dee. And she drives by in a truck, rolls her window down.
I'm only coming out because the media will not leave.
And it develops into kind of an impromptu news conference.
They're saying that I took a gun, put it up, and killed another human being, and I would never, ever do that.
But the very next day...
Hey, Dee Dee, they're calling you a murderer. Are you a murderer? No.
Doris Dee Dee Moore denied any involvement in Abraham Shakespeare's murder as she was led into a deputy's car tonight.
It was shocking. Here's someone who was supposed to be helping this guy with his money, and now she's the one charged with his murder.
By the time we presented it to the grand jury, she had provided the murder weapon, the body's behind one of her houses.
It's at the bottom, $1 million.
Dee Dee Moore was indicted for first-degree murder, premeditated murder of Abraham Shakespeare.
Dee Dee pleads not guilty, and when her trial starts...
As the now dark-tressed and dressed in yellow defendant took copious notes, lawyers from both sides made their opening arguments to the jury of 8 men and 4 women.
There's one big question. Will a jury believe her defense that she was actually a victim herself of the person she claims killed Abe? Six years after Abraham Shakespeare won the Florida lottery, 3.5 years after he disappeared, the murder trial of Dee Dee Moore is set to begin in this courthouse in Tampa.
State of Florida versus Doris Donegan Moore.
This has been a full day packed with the opening statements this morning and then the testimony this afternoon in what promises to be a full of drama trial.
The public's interest in this case was incredible.
Prosecutors claim Dee Dee Moore swindled
Journalists are always looking for something that is unprecedented.
Of Dee Dee's diabolical scheme to steal from, then kill lotto winner Abraham Shakespeare.
Or unusual, conflict, scandal. And this had pretty much all of the elements.
An anaphylactic shock.
Of course, Dee Dee's behavior in the courtroom also helped keep the story going.
Another day, another outburst.
We're not going to go back and forth. You need to compose yourself.
The prosecution is out to convince the jury that Dee Dee meticulously planned Abe's murder.
She conducted a sophisticated campaign to conceal his death by making up stories, by sending text messages.
It don't matter.
Prosecutors showed the jury video that Dee Dee took of Abraham in the mansion, and it's really the last piece of video of Abraham alive.
Are you gonna miss your home?
Yep, I miss it, but life goes on.
She's setting up her alibi. She was setting up her story. She knew that Abraham was confronting her about the lack of funds and the ability to access his money and so forth. And it came to a point where in Dee Dee's mind, she's going to have to do something about this.
Prosecutors believe right after that recording, Dee Dee and Abe traveled to her home in rural Plant City, Florida. And it's there that prosecutors say she shoots him and leaves him until the next day.
The body's on property she owns. The murder happened in her house and with her gun. She admitted she bought the lime that was poured over the body of Abraham Shakespeare.
Prosecutors show video in court of Dee Dee going to Walmart to buy cleaning supplies.
She was purchasing bleach and like latex gloves and I think some shovels to help Mike Smith and Greg Smith dig this body out by hand and dispose of it.
Although Dee Dee has never faced formal charges alleging she stole Abe's money, prosecutors say it was greed that motivated her to kill him.
Centuria is Abraham's former girlfriend, and she tells jurors that Dee Dee told her that she was plotting to take his money.
She made it sound like she wanted to clean him out.
Why do you say that?
Because she wanted to know about all of his assets, and she was like, I can help you clean him out. It was just a level of disgust to just know that this is what such a caring and giving person endured.
But the prosecutor's star witness is Greg Smith, who takes the stand to deliver some of the most compelling and devastating testimony at the trial so far.
Greg Smith had been recruited by the sheriff's detectives to become her confidant, and the courtroom was just spellbound by his testimony.
I'm grown and don't have to come back.
When Greg Smith read the letter that Dee Dee Moore had composed in the motel room, jurors were on the edge of their seat.
I've been through a lot, Mom. You know it. You should understand more than anyone. I just need time.
The prosecution also asks Greg Smith about that supposed drug dealer who Dee Dee claimed was the one who actually murdered Abe.
I honestly don't know the guy's name. I knew him by Ronald.
Did Miss Moore address who to blame if you got caught?
Yes, she was addressing the guy Ronald, the imaginary character that she made up.
Ronald is nothing but a fictional character, a character that she created out of her imagination.
The defense, such as it was primarily based on that old premise that the state's case was all circumstantial, that there was no hard evidence, there were no eyewitnesses.
The burden of proof is on the state. It's a very high burden of proof beyond any reasonable doubt.
Dee Dee's lawyer tells the jury there's plenty of reasonable doubt here and that there could be many other possible suspects.
That the drug dealers or killers saw fit to threaten her to keep her mouth shut, or else they would harm her and her son.
The defense argues that Greg Smith could actually have been the mastermind in Abe's murder.
If you study those tapes, most of the ideas about the fall guy, about where's the body, we've got to find the body, we've got to dig up the body and move it, all those things, if you read or listen to those tapes, it is Mr. Smith making those suggestions.
Gregory Smith has never been a suspect in this murder.
But Dee Dee's attorney insists she is innocent, that she's a victim, in fact, powerless against the deadly whims of others.
This is a desperate, panicked, perhaps emotionally unstable woman trying desperately to find an explanation that can salvage her life and her son's.
By the end of their case, the defense called 0 witnesses, and Dee Dee herself never testified on her behalf.
Tonight, after just 3 hours of deliberation, a jury handed down their verdict.
But no matter what the jury decides about her fate,
Bring the jury in.
Dee Dee's about to tell us exactly what she thinks about it.
They didn't get to hear my side. They didn't get to see my evidence. They didn't get to hear my witnesses.
Why didn't you take the stand then? After almost 2 weeks of this roller coaster murder trial, it's now up to the jury to decide Dee Dee's fate.
Bring the jury in.
Tonight, after just 3 hours of deliberation, a jury handed down their verdict.
Juries do unpredictable things at times.
Is that indeed the jury's verdict?
It was probably 7 o'clock at night. A storm was coming in. Right as they read guilty on the first count,
The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder.
a clap of lightning happens outside and just kind of lights up the courtroom. It was kind of like, yeah, it was wild.
Abraham Shakespeare was your prey and your victim. Money was the root of the evil that you brought to Abraham.
The judge made a brief statement about how heinous her crime was and that he would be sentencing her to life in a Florida state prison without the possibility of parole.
I felt like he did get justice because even though his life was cut short, her life is just going to be long and miserable.
I won't forgive her. I don't forgive, and I never will.
Convicted murderers rarely talk while they still have appeals left, but then again, Dee Dee Moore is no ordinary murderer.
I'm not nervous. I don't get nervous.
Hi. After Dee Dee was sentenced to life in prison without parole in 2012, 2020 was granted an exclusive interview with Dee Dee here in her cell block's cafeteria. Upon arrival, we quickly learned that Dee Dee wasn't exactly camera shy.
Yeah, I've been on TV before.
Okay, that's good to hear. Yeah. You're a pro.
Let me show you this.
And this is fan mail. This is people...
I have more than fan mail. I have a movie producer doing a big TV screen production of my case.
Despite that jury taking less than 3 hours to convict her, Dee Dee vehemently maintains her innocence.
I think people are complete idiots that think I had anything to do with it. I really do.
When the guilty verdict was read, what went through your mind?
They murdered me by the hands of justice. I'm murdered. You might as well kill me, because this is no type of living in here. Because I would never harm another human being. I would never hurt nobody. I liked Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and Disney. I like Tinkerbell and kind things. I'm not a mean person.
After a 2-week trial filled with damning audio and video evidence, I wondered if Dee Dee might finally come clean about what really happened to Abraham Shakespeare.
Did you murder Abraham Shakespeare?
Absolutely not.
Did you bury him in your backyard?
Absolutely not.
Why are you laughing?
Because...
A man is dead. He's been murdered,
yes,
clearly.
Yes.
And you're laughing.
Yeah. Because I find it entertaining that people are that ignorant. Because there are so many things that proves my innocence.
You ended up in his house with all the rest of his money. Then he ended up dead in your property.
Okay. But
shot by your gun. You don't find any of that unusual or odd?
Absolutely not, considering the people he hung around. I only knew this man for 4 months, and I'm just gonna, oh my goodness, I met this man, and you know what? I'm gonna plot a murder in 4 months.
Do you understand how listening to you is bewildering?
Well, do you understand how listening to you is just, it sounds like a bunch of stupidity?
So if Dee Dee's claims are so convincing, why didn't the jury buy it? Well, she blames it all on her own attorney.
About me. I personally would have convicted myself for what they got to hear, but they didn't get to hear my side. They didn't get to see my evidence. They didn't get to hear my witnesses.
Why didn't you take the stand then?
Because my
you had
lawyers,
every opportunity to defend yourself.
I wanted my witnesses to take the stand for me to take the stand. My lawyer says we didn't need it.
Your lawyer was that convinced you were going to win?
Yes.
But Dee Dee's lawyer, Byron Heilman, said the decision not to testify was Dee Dee's, and Dee Dee's alone.
We discussed with Ms. Moore whether she wished to testify. That discussion had gone on for quite some time, and she made the decision not to do that.
But since she claims her case was not properly presented in court, Dee Dee tries with us.
People were trying to frame you.
Absolutely.
Why?
Because, first of all, I was an easy target.
A target, she claims, for drug dealers. Remember the story about Ronald, that so-called drug kingpin? Dee Dee claims the gang he allegedly had was out to kill her.
They were gonna take my son and kill him and chop him up and put him on my doorstep.
Who?
These guys that the sheriff's department says didn't exist. That we have witnesses that they do exist.
You give so many different versions that it's absolutely bewildering.
On purpose.
Why is that?
I'm threatened. They're making.
So you're lying to the police because you feel threatened?
No, I'm being told to do that. I'm being told to just keep throwing them off.
By
Ronald.
Dee Dee claims she has witnesses who will back up her version of events, but she wasn't eager to share those names with us.
Can we talk to your witnesses? Who are they? Do you mind if we take down their names and maybe contact them?
I'd have to ask my lawyer, but I don't know if they'll...
These witnesses don't exist, and that certainly looks like your handwriting.
What do you mean
That looks like your handwriting. What you said were witnesses' notes looks like your handwriting.
No,
I don't
it's
think
not.
that these witnesses exist. If not, why
Ask
won't we
my
know?
lawyer.
Dee Dee says since she's appealing her conviction, she can't actually talk about them. And with that, our interview is over.
But we need to go ahead and take her now.
Okay, thank you. Well, it was nice meeting you.
You too.
Dee Dee may not have been willing to share her evidence of supposed witnesses with us, but she's going to get a chance to present her claims in court.
Is going to be back in court today. Dee Dee Moore will try to convince a judge to give her a retrial.
Will it be enough to get her murder conviction overturned? After years of filing motions to appeal her conviction, in July of 2023, Dee Dee finally gets another day in court.
Dee Dee Moore is back in a Tampa courtroom demanding a new trial.
Dee Dee tells the judge that she was framed by investigators who were paid off by those drug dealers that she alleged were doing business with Abraham Shakespeare.
They're being paid under the table because cocaine dealers can afford a lot.
The investigators denied Dee Dee's allegations.
I have never heard of anything of this corrupt drug network involving Abraham Shakespeare or corruption within either of our departments.
It's absurd. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
The judge denied Dee Dee's request for a new trial. But that wasn't the last time we heard from Dee Dee. More than 12 years after we first talked in Florida, we spoke to Dee Dee again on a call for prison. Tell me, how are you?
I'm fine. I've been working on my case and I've got my appeals out, so I'm waiting patiently.
How long have you been incarcerated in jail and in prison at this point?
14 years.
You still do not admit that you murdered Abe Shakespeare?
Absolutely not, I didn't.
14 years is a lot of time to think. Do you ever go back and think about Abe, about Abraham Shakespeare?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was wrong. There was no reason for him to pass away over money. But for them to lie in public and say that it took his money, the whole situation was so stupid.
You murdered him and you've taken zero responsibility. And you're saying, like, in past tense, that it's so sad he had to pass away. Abraham Shakespeare did not pass away. Abraham Shakespeare was shot at close range.
Everything they said in jury trials was not true.
I thought that you might,
Remorse?
more than a decade after our interview, have some remorse, some reflection about what had happened. That maybe there was a little bit of softness in your heart about Abraham and about your responsibility here.
There is plenty of softness in my heart.
She is still as adamant as she ever was that she was framed, that Abraham Shakespeare was murdered by someone else. She denies taking Abe's money. She denies doing anything wrong. Abraham Shakespeare not only lost his fortune and his life, he lost the chance to see his children grow up.
Everyone, thank you for coming.
The funeral was very emotional. It was a celebration of his life, but it was also very sad to learn that he was killed for his money. Was just something that everybody could not understand.
He was a kind-hearted person who genuinely wanted to help people. He helped tons of people in this city. He kept people from going into foreclosure. He paid light bills, phone bills. He honestly did that.
Imagine just spending your last $4, which is what Abraham Shakespeare did on those lottery tickets, putting your last money on a far-fetched dream. Abraham did a lot of good with some of his winnings. The favor wasn't returned to him.
He was a wonderful man.
Yeah.
He will be sorely missed.
I'll never forget, after they found him, I remember having a dream. And I remember in the dream telling Abraham, oh good, you can come with me now. And he kept saying, no, no, you'll be okay. That was enough for me to believe that I'll be okay. I really miss him today. I really just need to hear his voice today. I just want him, like, bring him back.
Remembering Abraham with a broken heart and missing him, Centauria is now a traveling nurse.
And we should note that Jeremiah, their son, he is now 16 years old. That's our program for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm David Muir.
And I'm Deborah Roberts. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.
An all-new 2020 starts right now.
A chaotic scene. Local pastor Matt Baker has arrived home to find his wife, Carrie, unresponsive in their bedroom.
I put my head to her chest and no air coming out, felt for pulse, nothing.
An EMT told me that my daughter was dead.
There was a piece of paper on the end table and something didn't set right.
Your wife took her own life, and it's pretty obvious.
I just kept saying there's no way.
Was there an autopsy done initially?
There was no autopsy done.
We don't think Carrie killed herself. We know she didn't.
Your assignment for today.
We're investigating.
We did. It was nonstop all the time. I would go, good morning, angels.
Harley's Angels of Waco. They were this group of strong women who were not going to just let this go.
You're presented with a crime scene that's not really a crime scene, right?
Things aren't adding up. I have to know the truth. What are you talking about? Murder?
EMS, what's your emergency?
My wife is laying in the bed. Her lips are blue, hands are cold.
It was just before midnight here in the small town of Hewitt, Texas, on the outskirts of Waco. Beloved minister Matt Baker comes home to find his wife unresponsive in their bedroom. Their two young daughters asleep in their beds. Matt calls 911.
Are you in there with her right now? Is she conscious?
No,
she's breathing. Did you see what happened to her?
No, I do not know.
The ambulance is on the way, okay? Are you right beside her right now?
Yes.
Matt had been beside his wife, Carrie, since they met at a Baptist summer camp and fell in love.
I was the assistant director and she was one of the camp counselors. And from day one, we kind of hit it off.
Carrie fell head over heels. She told the family that she'd met a good Christian boy and she'd fallen in love.
Her faith was the core of who she was. And so it was very important to her that she found someone whose faith was aligned with hers.
Matt grew up in Kerrville. He too came from a very religious family.
Carrie, she was always the bubbly little blonde and just loved life. People were drawn to Carrie.
She was so funny. And when Carrie laughed, she laughed with her whole body. Everyone in the room just could feel her because she was just so free-spirited.
I don't think there was ever a question Carrie was right or not right for me. It was we moved fast. We met in May and married in August.
We tried to talk Carrie into waiting a little longer, and she really did not want to. Carrie was looking for a husband with morals and values that were similar to what she had, and Matt, she believed, had those.
That you may fear the Lord your God, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you.
She was marrying a Baptist minister. How good is that? You couldn't pick a better guy than Matt Baker.
Can you say Merry Christmas? No, here, take your pacifier out. Say Christmas. Can you give a kiss?
The kids came quickly.
Oh.
They look like this perfect young couple with this beautiful baby.
Carrie wanted children. She always had, and she was a wonderful mother.
She's still so pink.
And then Cassidy came. It looked to the outside world like everything was just coming together for the Bakers.
If you know our children or not, this is my wife, Carrie, and it's special for me to do this because they are my children, our children.
Cassidy, hi.
But it was just after Cassidy's first birthday when the family was dealt some heartbreaking news about her.
And it turned out that she had a brain tumor. Carrie was devastated, absolutely devastated.
We went to Cook Children's Hospital in Fort Worth.
It was a scary time, and she struggled in pediatric ICU for 60 days. They started chemotherapy on her.
They didn't know if she would make it through, but she did.
We get to bring her home. That was one of the happiest days.
She needed a lot of care when she came home, but she was expected to recover.
The Academy Awards were playing that night, and I remember staying up watching that. I went in and checked on Cassidy, and she was fine. I gave her a kiss and said a prayer, checked on their older sister, kissed her, said a prayer, and went to bed.
A little while later, he got back up and went and checked on her a second time. This time he started screaming. Carrie jumped up, ran into the room, found Cassidy, and she wasn't breathing at all.
I yell at my wife as I'm taking her out of the bed, and I put her on the floor and I begin CPR. She calls 911.
They brought Cassidy to the hospital, but they weren't able to save her. Cassidy died.
I know we dealt with it differently. We would have discussions about it and pray about it, and it was a struggle.
Carrie bled grief after Cassidy died.
And she was having a difficult time sleeping.
Carrie had been taking over-the-counter sleep aid since Cassidy died.
She could not calm down at night without sleeping pills.
She started writing journals, and she just poured out incredible sorrow. She thought she saw Cassidy wherever she went.
It was horrible. What helped Carrie, in addition to her faith and her family, was she saw a grief counselor for a year. She talked and talked things through.
The death of a child always puts a terrible strain on a marriage. Carrie really fought to keep that marriage together. She loved Matt. She wanted it to work out.
I just told Carrie that men and women often grieve in different ways.
In time, the Bakers and their daughter tried to move ahead with their lives.
It was 1.5 years after Cassidy's death. Carrie found out that she was pregnant. Carrie said that the baby was coming by the grace of God.
There was definitely a fear in my wife that I had not seen before. A fear of what if. I lost one, what if we lose another one? I can't handle that.
She loved her girls, and she was so strong for them. Cassidy's life was cut short, but she had them.
The 4 of them looked like this perfect little family. You would think, oh, look, They just have it all.
EMS, what's your emergency?
Almost exactly 7 years after the death of her daughter, Cassidy, Carrie is now seemingly lifeless on their bedroom floor while her husband works to save her.
Do compressions first, okay? Just keep doing compressions.
Waco is a great city. It's very religious. You can't walk a block without seeing a church.
It's small enough that most people are just a degree or two away from knowing everybody else.
Hewitt, Texas is a suburb of Waco. Back then, maybe 12,000 people. They have their own city, government, police.
And when Carrie and Matt moved in, they quickly became part of the community.
But in early April 2006, right here in the heart of the Bible Belt, a chaotic scene is unfolding inside this house. Local pastor Matt Baker has arrived home to find his wife, Carrie, unresponsive in their bedroom.
And what's the problem? Tell me exactly what happened.
My wife is laying in the bed, and her lips are blue, hands are cold.
Is she conscious?
No, she's not.
Breathing?
No, she's not breathing at all, no pulse or anything.
I put my head to her chest and didn't see or feel her chest rising, no air coming out, felt for pulse, nothing.
Okay, listen carefully. I need you to get her laying flat on her back on the ground and remove any pillows, okay?
Okay, put her on the floor.
Correct.
Put her on the bed now. Put her on.
All right, she needs to be on the floor, yes, sir.
Okay.
The 911 operator tells Matt to do CPR, to put Carrie on the floor and start CPR.
Do that and tell me when you're done.
Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on. Oh, my. Okay, hold on.
I did not want the EMTs to come in and see her naked. And so I put her clothes on her, for her. And as I'm taking her off the bed, fluid comes out of her mouth onto the floor, and it smells of alcohol.
You're going to push down firmly 2 inches with only your lower hand touching her chest. You're going to do it fast and hard 400 times.
400?
400 times is the latest we've been instructed to do, okay?
400.
Twice per second.
Rest it off?
After the 400. You're going
400
to, correct. It's going to be about twice per second. It'll take you about 3.5 minutes to do it, okay? So start right now. I'll tell you when to stop. All right.
While on the phone, Matt asks the 911 operator to call Carrie's parents because he says his daughters are also in the house.
I need to get a hold of her parents. They live in town, and I want them to come over and be with the kids.
Get somebody else started on this, okay?
Thank you.
We received a phone call from the 911 operator telling us that we needed to get over to my daughter's house, that there had been an accident. We needed to get over there immediately.
Oh, she's got foam or something coming out of her nose. Okay, someone's at the front door. I gotta go.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
My name is Michael Irvin. I was a patrol officer with the city of Hewitt, and at that time I had only had about 6 months of actual law enforcement experience. I was the first officer to respond to the house. There was actually an EMT that met me in the front yard. Matt Baker actually met us outside and then walked us in, and he took us straight into the bedroom where his wife was at.
The EMTs go in and they find Carrie on the floor. She's wearing a t-shirt and a pair of underpants.
And they come in, and I step away and let them start working.
There was a glass there that was actually still cold, if I remember correctly, which led into his account of what happened that night.
It'd been a typical Friday night that Matt says started with him and Carrie sharing a drink before heading to the local Y.
We had a wine cooler that I'd purchased, and so she drank one, I drank one. We take our oldest daughter to swim practice that night. On the way, my wife started saying her stomach was hurting her. She just felt nauseated, wasn't feeling very good.
After the family returns home, Matt says Carrie still wasn't feeling well, and after taking a bath, she heads to bed while he starts the bedtime rituals with her daughters.
It's a Friday night, so they could stay up later. They could stay up till 10 o'clock watching TV. Came back, laid down with my wife. She's still in bed, half asleep, and she wants another drink. She has a drink, I have one too. She goes to sleep, wakes up at about 11 o'clock and asks me to go get a movie. And I was like, it's 11 o'clock. She goes, well, go get this movie for me and gas up because we have a busy day tomorrow.
He left to go get a movie. While he was gone, he came back and he discovered that he couldn't get back in.
Walk to the bedroom door and it's closed. And I try the knob and it's locked. And I knock on it and call her name, Carrie, Carrie, and there's no response.
Matt says he finds a small screwdriver to try to open the door.
So I pop the lock and open the door and find her in bed. And it was very eerily similar to walking in the room when I found Cassidy.
As EMTs in the Baker residence work on Carrie, police take note of those wine coolers on the bedside table and something else.
There was this bottle of Unistom that it was almost empty.
She had been taking sleeping pills to go to sleep since Cassidy passed away and started taking more and more of them. And we had discussions that you've got to stop doing this. This is too many. This can be dangerous.
We ran out of the car, and as I started running up to the front of the house, an EMT person stood in front of me and grabbed me and told me that my daughter was dead.
I just kept saying, there's no way.
There was a piece of paper on the end table, and something didn't set right. For me, it all pointed back to that note.
A frenzied scene has been unfolding in the middle of the night at the Baker's home. Matt Baker's wife is dead, and there's a note.
On the bedside table, there's a suicide note.
That was the first time that the word suicide entered my mind. I had no idea at that moment what had happened.
In the note, there was reference to Cassidy. Matt explained to me that Cassidy was their daughter. And it's a very difficult time for Carrie because of the anniversary of Cassidy passing away. The first person I remember showing up after me, I explained all the things that Matt had showed me, and I took a step back.
In Texas, in small counties where they don't have medical examiners, the justices of the peace decide what happens when there's an unexplained or a sudden death.
I do remember in that phone call, it was Judge Martin.
They told him they had a suicide note and they had alcohol and that they had pills. And Billy Martin did not order an autopsy.
It was classified as a suicide based on the preliminary investigation and what they saw at the scene.
Police involvement at that point is done.
Carrie Baker's family and her church community are shocked by her suicide.
I hurt for her. I hurt that someone hurt enough that they made that choice.
We're just trying to put one foot in front of the other and get through this. This is...
Less than 1 week after Carrie's funeral, Pastor Matt Baker is back at the pulpit here at Crossroads Baptist delivering the Easter sermon. He tells his congregation that just like Jesus, Carrie has risen up to heaven.
There was always the desire in her to be with a daughter that was in heaven now. And she did voice that several times, that Cassidy needed her, she needed Cassidy.
This was my wife's Bible that she carried for years.
Matt had given her a Bible years earlier, and she started writing her feelings in the margins.
She says, I want to go with Cassidy. She could never let go of Cassidy. It was such a strong hold on her.
The week Carrie died, she had a session with her grief counselor and also saw a doctor who prescribed her medication.
The next day she ripped up the prescription. She wouldn't fill it.
After finding out Carrie died, I had talked to my sister Kay. I just kept saying there's no way.
Carrie would never take her own life.
And then that's when she told me about a visit she got from Joanne.
Joanne Bristol is Carrie's grief counselor and also friends with Carrie's aunt, Kay Bailey.
She had had a session with Carrie earlier that week. She had shared with me what Carrie had shared with her, that Carrie found some crushed pills in Matt's briefcase.
Joanne Bristol also shared that detail and others with police in the days following Carrie's death.
My sister Kay and I, we all started talking, not around Linda. We all were sitting there going, what are we going to do? Because we knew so much about Matt.
We worked at a church camp together. Matt, I believe, had been written up at that particular camp for harassing girls that I went to school with.
There was also an alleged incident from his college days involving a fellow student.
I was afraid of him. I was angry with him. He took away virtually my young adulthood.
Laura Wilson filed a complaint against Matt, saying he sexually assaulted her.
We were both student trainers for the athletic department. He was a sophomore trainer and I was a freshman trainer.
She was cleaning the bathrooms. Matt came in and offered to help.
He came up behind me and he pinned my arms behind my back and started trying to kiss me. I kept telling him to stop. He came up from behind me, picked me up, sat me on his lap, and he began running his hand between my legs. I was struggling to get away. He didn't stop with the kiss. He didn't stop with the touching until he was ready to stop. Now I'm left with myself, violated, in shock, not knowing what to do.
All I can tell you is when she left the facility, was in tears, but nothing that I did.
After the assault happened, his words to me were, "I never meant to hurt you."
At the time, Laura told a college staffer about the alleged assault. Matt was not disciplined.
I dropped out, dealt with recurring nightmares, dealt with trust issues in relationships. It derailed my life for many, many years. I became a different person.
She eventually filed a report with police years later.
They began looking into the allegations, but stopped once they realized the statute of limitations had passed. Matt Baker denies assaulting Laura or harassing any female campers.
Things have been said that can be misconstrued, misinterpreted, but I can't say this, I never accosted anybody.
Throughout Matt and Carrie's marriage, rumors of alleged inappropriate sexual behavior would continue to follow the preacher, but his wife stood by him.
She loved Matt. When Carrie heard allegations that Matt had been inappropriate with young women, she was his staunchest defender. She told one young woman, when you marry a Baptist preacher, women are going to come forward and make false allegations, and you have to protect them.
Carrie believed him, and we believed Carrie. She was telling us the truth, as she knew it.
I think there's a presumption with a man of God that they have a certain character and a certain ethical base, and we believe that.
Linda's sisters had hoped that by talking to her about the various past allegations against Matt, she might start to see him in a different light. But she didn't. She still had faith in her son-in-law.
My sisters came over, and I told them, let's just grieve and let this go.
But the family wouldn't let it go.
It started with the cell phone records.
And Linda soon makes a startling discovery.
Something wasn't right.
Over the years, since her daughter Cassidy's death, Carrie Baker was in and out of counseling, dealing with her grief, especially around the time of year when Cassidy died.
Anytime you got close to the anniversary of the death of Cassidy or her birthday or holidays, there was definitely a deep sadness.
But there was more going on that year. There was the fact that she was uncertain about her relationship with Matt. She sensed that something was very wrong. After Carrie's death, Linda's sisters sat down with Linda and said, "We don't believe that Carrie committed suicide."
While Linda may have still been processing her daughter's loss, her family's emotions had quickly turned to suspicion.
I remember Nancy saying, "Linda, have you ever considered that perhaps Carrie didn't take her life?" I remember stammering and saying, "Oh, what are you talking about? Murder?"
We don't think Carrie killed herself. We know she didn't.
The family decides to tell Linda what they say they learned from Carrie's therapist.
Carrie had shared with her that she'd found some crushed pills in Matt's briefcase, and she was afraid that Matt might possibly try to kill her.
She said, "I think Matt's trying to kill me." And then she started laughing and she said, "Oh no, Matt would never do that."
But at the same time, I thought this would make more sense because I knew that Carrie would never take her own life.
I think if truly Carrie went and said that and was fearful for her life, the counselor should have done more and didn't. Looking back, I think it was a scream, the first scream in a series of screams that took place that week of, "I'm hurting more than you think I am."
Murder, I mean, that's just not something that I could wrap my head around. I needed time to think, to process. This was too difficult for me to be able to discuss.
But then shortly after Carrie's death, Linda says she began to notice Matt was keeping her granddaughters away from her. No more babysitting, no more invitations to school events.
At that point, she started to feel a little different. What was going on here and why was this happening?
Linda remembers Matt and Carrie's cell phones were part of her family plan, so she decides to have a look at the phone bill.
The first really odd thing she noticed was that Matt had continued to call Carrie's cell phone weeks after Carrie had died. It made no sense at all, and then it all started to click. Matt's giving Carrie's phone to someone.
And I think you said calling all angels, but we all went over to your house. You said, we need to get together and talk.
At that point, Linda started to think that maybe her sisters were right, and maybe they really did need to look into this.
It started with the cell phone. And I immediately figured out it was Vanessa Bowles.
Vanessa Bowles was the daughter of the music minister at Crossroads Church, where Matt was the preacher.
The relationship really started between my wife and her. They became friends.
Vanessa had a little girl that reminded Carrie of the baby she had lost.
There were only 3 young families in the church that had small children, so we naturally just kind of congregated together because we had similar interests. We were friends.
Vanessa would later describe in a recorded interview how she says the friendship evolved.
So I just got divorced, and it was nice to have someone, to talk to,
Right.
Who was in a pastoral position.
And she gives her explanation of why she has Carrie's phone.
We were starting to talk and become friends. Then I said, "Don't call my cell because my mom pays for my meds and I don't want to run over during the day. I've done that many times before." And he was like, "Well, I still have Carrie's phone, so I can give that to you."
Maybe Matt was simply seeking comfort in the friendship of a fellow churchgoer. But for Linda, those phone bills had set off alarm bells.
Linda went to the Hewitt Police Department. She showed them the phone bills, but they weren't interested. This was a done case. It was over as far as they were concerned.
That's when Linda said, I need my angels over here.
I would email them. I would go, good morning, angels.
She would always tell us, you need to do this. You need, and
here's your assignment for today.
We're investigating.
We did. It was nonstop all the time.
The assignments Linda gave out involved going through the garbage.
And Charlie was doing some digging right alongside her angels as well. She researched whether overdosing on a sleep aid could have really killed Carrie.
And she questioned Matt about those alleged crushed pills.
I talked to Matt about the crushed pills.
My wife said she found him in my briefcase when she was looking for a pen. She said, well, did a kid where you work put him in your bag?
Matt claims that, unknown to him, some kids at work may have been spitting out pills into his briefcase.
But that seemed odd because the pills didn't look like they'd been spit out.
What he said couldn't have happened.
And so Kay called Judge Billy Martin to find out why he had ruled Carrie's death a suicide.
I had talked to him about the suicide note, and he mentioned it being signed, and I said it was not. And he goes, well, you need to talk to the police. I said, we've already done this, and we just want somebody to investigate it more.
And it was about that time where Matt's story no longer made sense. There were inconsistencies, outright lies, and we needed more answers.
So following the family's urging, police bring Pastor Matt Baker in for questioning.
Well, I just want to sit and talk to him.
Questions needed to be asked, and questions needed to be answered.
"31-year-old Carrie Baker has been found dead in her home. It was deemed a suicide by police, but her family began investigating on their own, and they urged police to question her husband, preacher Matt Baker.
I just want to sit and talk to him, I just want to talk about what happened that night.
Absolutely.
That way we can clear all this up, because I'm sure you know what I'm getting at, okay, as far as, Linda, you know what I'm saying?
It was a very odd week. But not behavior that would have raised red flags.
Right.
If that makes sense. It was one of those deals that I knew she was depressed.
The conversation continues, with Matt sharing his own view on what he believes might have happened.
I left about 11 or so. I wasn't gone maybe 40 minutes.
You left the house and went down to the gas station?
I wasn't even gone long at all.
Okay.
And that was a strange thing about it is I question where she would have taken the medicine. Personally, this is my opinion. I don't think the medicine is what killed her. I think she threw up into her mouth, but was knocked out enough and choked on it. So no, I don't know if that's just me trying to put stuff together to make it, I don't know.
Okay. Like I said, that's all I just wanted to sit and holler at you about. One last thing, to kind of quell everything. If I asked you to take a polygraph test, would you be willing to do so?
Okay.
Matt eventually passes a polygraph arranged by his attorney. Upset that police continue to consider Carrie's death a suicide, Linda pulls together a team of her own.
Linda ended up making an appointment to talk to a former federal prosecutor.
Now in private practice, Bill Johnston had been a federal prosecutor in Waco, Texas.
The Branch Davidian complex in Waco, Texas goes up in flames.
11 of the survivors now face murder and conspiracy charges in connection with the killing of 4 federal agents.
And in 1993, he was part of the team prosecuting the 11 surviving Branch Davidians.
Those agents did not die in vain. Mrs. Doolin came to me and she said, I've heard maybe you can help me.
She explained to Bill that she doesn't believe her daughter took her own life, so she'd been working on Carrie's case with her angels.
What Charlie's Angels were bringing to us was invaluable. They were this group of strong women who were not going to just let this go. They brought a series of stories about Matt's conduct at different points in his life.
Bill pulled together his own posse. He brought together retired lawmen to take over this investigation.
I called them my guys, and they became as invested in this case as if they were fighting for their own child.
The biggest thing was to get the body exhumed, get an actual autopsy, and find out what had actually happened to Carrie Baker, how she'd actually died.
We started unraveling this thing bit by bit by bit.
Matt Coffon is a member of the legendary Texas Rangers. He joins the team and reviews the evidence on the case.
There are red flag after red flag that something was not right. It was so compelling that I could not automatically agree with the Hewitt police investigation. So I thought, okay, let's kind of break it down.
You're presented with a crime scene that's not really a crime scene, right?
These are photographs. As you can tell, there's just not much to them. There were so many things early on in this investigation that just did not match. And part of it was Matt Baker's explanation of his timeline.
He says he left and then he came back, and it was such a short time that she couldn't have died within that period.
That was the theory that we were operating on. His timetable did not really match up. This is an overall view of Hewitt, Texas, and it's not large.
And these locations are very close to each other.
Minutes apart, especially that time of night.
The team was also troubled by Carrie's suicide note, which Officer Michael Irving says was pointed out by Matt.
He just said, there's a suicide note, suicide note, suicide note. So he did direct me straight to the note.
The so-called suicide note was typed.
It's not signed, and that should be a red flag to any investigator. Let's take this a little bit further. It says, tell my mom and dad that I love them too. In this case, two is T-O, not comma, T-O-O.
She was a teacher. She could spell.
Yes.
Something didn't set right. And for me, it all pointed back to that note. That suicide note. I didn't speak up. At that time, I'd been a police officer for 6 months. If I could go and turn back time, there are a lot of things I would have done differently.
Was there an autopsy done initially?
There was no autopsy done. And so at this point, we decided that we needed to have tissue samples from Carrie's body, so we wanted to have that body exhumed.
At the time of the Hewitt police investigation, they concluded Carrie had died by suicide of over-the-counter sleep medication.
One of the tasks that Linda took on for herself was investigating Unisom. She found that it would have taken a great deal to have caused Carrie's death, and that she wouldn't have died quickly.
We came up with clues that made us believe that perhaps there were prescription medications given to her without her knowledge.
Nearly 4 months after Carrie's death, the Texas Rangers, in conjunction with Hewitt Police, are able to get Judge Martin to sign an order allowing for the exhumation of Carrie's body.
As we gathered information from various sources, determined we need to go that route.
By this time, we were working pretty closely with a detective at the Hewitt Police Department.
It was critical that they had an autopsy.
We had a lot of circumstantial evidence, but we needed some scientific evidence. It's something that a prosecutor can hold in their hands and say, okay, now we may have something here.
What else would the Charlie's Angels of Waco and their investigative team learn?
A photograph was found on Matt Baker's computer. He tried to delete it.
We didn't know if she might have even been involved.
Was Carrie's death a terrible tragedy or something much more sinister?
A manipulative liar wearing the mask of God came into my life.
The Hewitt preacher's wife was found dead. Her death originally ruled a suicide. But is that how the mother of two really died?
Maybe someone had held that coarse material against her nose.
I think Carrie, on some level, understood that she was in danger.
But you also discover in that Bible, Lord, I'm asking you to protect me from harm.
He's having a conversation with the 911 operator, and he's not winded, and he's perfectly calm while he's talking. I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't think it happened that way.
You don't quickly dress a dead body.
Here's a picture of Matt Baker. Is this the other woman?
I'm gonna tell what you did. And he said, you better not do that.
Sometimes faith can be used to manipulate and to control people.
Preachers, the good ones are great. The bad ones have the most power of anybody.
Here they were, the police, in the home of a Baptist minister with a suicide note and sleeping pills and a bottle of alcohol. Well, the police at that point aren't thinking murder. They're thinking that Carrie committed suicide.
Texas pastor Matt Baker had lost a young daughter years earlier. He now appears to be facing yet another tragedy, the suicide of his wife, Carrie. But her family isn't buying it.
I knew that Carrie would never take her own life.
We will fight for the truth.
Could Carrie have been murdered? The Hewitt police, now collaborating with Texas Ranger Matt Coffon, who's been working with Carrie's family, obtained an order to exhume Carrie's body. And the autopsy results are now in.
In her muscle tissue, there was a presence of Ambien, and that was huge, huge.
And at the time of her death, she didn't have a prescription for Ambien.
No.
The autopsy now lists Carrie's manner of death as undetermined.
Now you're in undetermined land, now you're in a mystery, now let's solve the mystery.
Bill Johnston and his team continue to dig, now taking a closer look at those few crime scene photos.
What's this?
This is a picture of Carrie's arm. And what you're seeing here is you're seeing the beginning of lividity, the purplish color from the pooling of the blood. You know, when the heart pumps, it pumps through the veins and the arteries. When the heart stops, everything settles to its lowest point. It's gravity. We have lividity set in the body, and that takes time. And this was a problem with Bill Johnston and his team.
And so we found the person who wrote the book on crime scene reconstruction, Tom Bevel.
The first responders from the medical field are saying that lividity either was setting in or set, which in that time frame, that's a problem.
So this is their home right there, right?
Yeah, this is their home. So if he leaves his house at 11, 45 to 55 minutes later, lividity could not have been set in as it was in the photographs, all right?
Cawthon and the team believe that Carrie was likely dead before Matt Baker left his home. So if Carrie's suicide was a homicide, how was she killed? The photograph showed something more.
In one of the photographs, there is a small abrasion that is to the bridge of her nose.
We surmised that this was very likely done using a throw pillow off of a couch. It was kind of a coarse material that very likely could have caused an abrasion.
Indicating that maybe someone had held that coarse material against her nose.
That's right.
The abrasion on Carrie's nose, it's not noted in the autopsy, but the presence of the generic form of Ambien is. So Bill Johnston wants to look into Matt's digital trail. He sues Matt for wrongful death and obtains access to his computer records.
A month before Carrie's death, they discovered Matt was on the computer searching for the term overdose by sleeping pills.
I did search that. I did research to see, can you overdose? Is that even a possibility that I need to worry about? My wife overdosing on sleeping pills.
As they continued to go through the computer, they found where he tried to buy Ambien, had moved it into a cart to purchase it.
And that bit of forensics in the computers now hard linked into the toxicology forensics. Our theory became, the Ambien in the wine cooler, he got her sleepy with that so he could later suffocate her. That was our theory.
And remember those writings in Carrie's Bible about Cassidy? Well, those were written years earlier, but there was a recent troubling entry dated just 5 days before Carrie's death,
which says, I feel like I have so much worry. Lord, I'm asking you to protect me from harm. I am not sure what is going on with Matt. What does that indicate?
It's ominous. It's almost like she is afraid of him.
Looking back on it, they were predictive.
I think Carrie, on some level, understood that she was in danger, and she didn't realize that at that point that he was involved with somebody else.
During this investigation, we got a clue from a woman who worked in a jewelry store and said within a couple of weeks after Carrie's death, Matt Baker comes into the jewelry store with a woman, and they're looking at engagement rings.
No, we were not. One of our rules for our kids was when they turn 6 years old, they can get earrings. And so we began looking for jewelry, earrings.
Here's a picture of Matt Baker. Is this the other woman?
This is Vanessa Bulls. She was the other woman. Now, this is a photograph that we found on his computer in trash.
We knew there was going to be a birthday party, and we took a picture of all the girls and Matt and Vanessa.
It wasn't long after Carrie's death when people came over. They didn't see any pictures of Carrie at all, but there was a picture of Vanessa with the girls. 2 of Carrie and Matt's friends came to help with the party, and one of them stayed overnight, and she saw Matt sitting on the couch with Vanessa's head on his lap.
To Carrie's family, it was clear that a romantic relationship had developed between Matt and Vanessa.
4 months after Carrie's death, police believe Vanessa Bulls just might be the key to solving this case. So they bring her to the Hewitt Police Station for questioning.
It's just scary.
I know. Sorry to keep you waiting. Like I said, I'm going to ask you some questions about that, Carrie.
Okay.
This doesn't mean that you're uninterested, okay?
I'm sorry, this is just scary.
I know.
4 months after Carrie's death, Vanessa Bulls, the woman who appears to have become romantically involved with Matt Baker, is now sitting at the police station, answering questions about how that relationship unfolded.
Every once in a while, he started calling just to chat, just kind of asking about my divorce and, kind of saying how, like, God would work everything out.
How long was that it took it to progress to him calling a couple times a day?
I want to say a couple of weeks. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't nice to have someone who, had 2 daughters and would possibly, be the dad to my child.
Sure.
Having an affair that predated the killing, that would be big evidence.
Did you ever meet him romantically?
No.
Never? Okay.
After, yes. After his wife passed away.
Okay.
Because I didn't think there was anything wrong.
2020 obtained emails, never before broadcast, that show Carrie and Matt's relationship unraveling in the weeks before Carrie's death, at the same time as Matt and Vanessa's phone calls start to heat up.
She sensed that something was very wrong.
In one of those emails, Matt blames Carrie for Cassidy's death, writing you wanted her to be pain-free, and then telling her your prayer was the one that was answered.
That made her angry, and she was going to leave him. I suggested they get counseling.
Back in that police interview, Vanessa, who at this point had broken things off with Matt, seems open to believing he could have murdered Carrie.
Do you think that he had anything to do with her death?
I think anything's possible now.
A Hewitt preacher's wife was found dead in her home. Her death, originally ruled a suicide. But now, nearly a year and a half later, a judge has set a hearing to try to determine if that is how the mother of two really died.
A formal inquest into Carrie's death was held, but in the end, the justice of the peace, who initially declared it a suicide, made the same determination that the autopsy had made a year earlier.
That Carrie Lynn Baker's manner and cause of death shall be recorded as undetermined.
So what do you do?
And at some point, we have to do what we think is right. And in this case, it was to get an arrest warrant for Matt Baker.
Even though it wasn't ruled a homicide, nearly a year and a half after Carrie's death, Matt Baker is arrested for her murder.
Matt Baker is accused of drugging his wife Carrie with sleeping pills and then suffocating her with a pillow.
There's no way that he could take a life. And I know my sons, and I just don't believe he could do that.
And we have breaking news for you now from the McLennan County Jail.
Matt Baker could be released any time now. His $200,000 bond has been paid in cash.
My best decision was to move away from there and to move back here to my hometown, where I felt support and felt loved.
And it's in Kerrville, about 200 miles from Hewitt, that our cameras catch up with Matt and his daughters.
This is a little bit of everything. They have a cafe where they take flowers and they crush them up and pretend it's chicken noodle soup.
Don't be embarrassed.
2020 gets a glimpse of life with their father.
Favorite thing to do is play with my dad.
After losing their mother.
Each have their own,
Mine, hers.
you know, and they separate pants from shirts.
I pick mine and then he picks hers.
But I have to okay hers.
Yes.
Why?
Because she likes spaghetti straps.
But I don't wear them to school. I'm not allowed.
And during this last year, he was a single parent, working and taking care of his girls. They emotionally attached to their dad very strongly, the younger one especially.
This is my favorite toy because it used to be my dad's when he was a little kid.
Once Matt was released, he went on kind of a press tour.
He tried to tell the world his side of the story.
Would Matt Baker have the nerve to actually interview for and do a photo shoot with Texas Monthly? Yes, he would.
Pretty much anybody who wanted to talk with him, Matt Baker had an open door.
Tonight on 2020, was it suicide or murder?
The story goes national, and Matt Baker sits down with 2020 for an interview. He proclaims his innocence and denies he had an affair with Vanessa Bowles.
It was a friend, it was a very good friend, but there's nothing there now. I don't believe in adultery, I don't believe in divorce.
The problem was that for him was that he changed his story a little bit every time he gave one.
Matt tells 2020 that it was the police who found that suicide note.
One of the police officers found it and handed it to me, and I held it in my hands for a brief moment, and I looked at the first line, and I handed it back and said, I can't read it right now.
But listen as Matt refers to that suicide note in his 911 call.
My wife is laying in the bed, and her lips are blue, hands are cold, and there's a note that says, I'm sorry, basically.
There's no way I could ever have hurt my wife. I loved her. She's the mother of my children, and I missed her, and I did not hurt my wife.
We felt validated with the arrest, but I'm going to tell you right now, all the arrests in the world mean nothing without a good prosecution.
The Texas Rangers made an arrest on the case, and the case was then transferred to our office. And I believed that Matt had killed Carrie, but I didn't feel like that we had the proof
to take it to a trial and get a conviction.
If you get an acquittal, it's over.
6 months after Matt Baker's arrest, the murder charge is dismissed after prosecutors failed to indict him.
It was frustrating, but I mean, we knew it would take time and we weren't going to stop.
People started running around town with bumper stickers that said "Justice for Carrie." "Love trumps evil" was underneath it.
We had truth on our side. We had God on our side.
We had Bill Johnston, and we were going to continue civilly.
But his story was not adding up anymore.
You wouldn't have left those two girls there if you didn't think it was safe.
And would Matt's account of what he says he did when he found Carrie check out?
He's not winded, and he's perfectly calm while he's talking. I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't think it happened that way, John. I just don't.
When the criminal case was stalled and it wasn't going forward, Bill Johnston filed a wrongful death case, and that allowed him to subpoena Matt Baker for a deposition.
It's the lower left of the...
2.5 years after the death of his wife, Matt Baker is on the hot seat, answering questions under oath about the night she died.
About 10:45-ish, a little before 11, she asked me if I could run a couple of errands.
Now, had she sort of refreshed herself and gotten awake and got forward thinking by that time?
I mean, it was still kind of that half awake, just talking, but still kind of real drowsy.
I'm conjecturing that it went through his mind that maybe she already took all the sleeping pills before he left.
Was she aware enough that you could observe that she could handle if the kids needed her, for instance?
I would, yeah, I felt that she probably could.
She had to be fine, or else she was incapacitated and he was a bad father and he just left his girls with an incapacitated person. Which one is it, Matt? So he chose the high road, that yes, Carrie was fine. So if Carrie's fine, she's not getting ready to die.
Bill was able to ask him question after question after question and get answers from him that were very helpful.
While you have the phone pressed against your shoulder, you put on her panties first, is that correct?
I believe that's right.
And then what did you do?
And I put on her shirt.
Okay, and she's on the bed at this time?
Correct.
But Matt had told police a different version of how he dressed Carrie that night.
So I put the panties on her in the bed as I was getting her out, and then when she was on the floor, I put her shirt on.
The clothing, it appears consistent, especially her panties, as to how you would typically find if they were put on by the individual, not somebody else with a lady who is not able to assist.
If he would lie about dressing her, why? And he wanted to explain their body was cold by saying she was nude on top of the bed, as if she would have aired out, cooled off. Just a stick figure put where she came to rest once you moved. How difficult was that to move her?
I guess at the time you don't even think about it. You just do what you have to do.
We wanted to know if Matt's story holds up, so we asked Texas Ranger Matt Cawthon to put it to the test with a dummy roughly the same weight as Carrie's at the time of her death.
He would have had to reposition the body. I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't think it happened that way, John. I just don't.
How much time would he have had to do this between the call to 911 and the chest compressions?
About 2 minutes.
To dress her, put her body on the floor, all while on the phone with 911. We're going to see if you can do this. I'm going to put a stopwatch to it, and here we go. And you're doing it as fast as you can.
Well, I'm doing it the best I can. And I feel the phone's about to fall.
We're at 48 seconds now. We're about 1:20.
He's having a conversation with the 911 operator, and he's not winded, and he's perfectly calm while he's talking to the 911 operator.
That's 1:57.
And then,
just to get her dressed. That doesn't include the removing from the bed and the chest compressions.
And I know how to do CPR. Oh, you do?
In listening to the 911 call, it sounded phony.
Do I need to go unlock the front door?
I'll let you know when they start getting close, okay?
Okay.
I think he'd give himself an Oscar, and I'd give him a Rotten Tomato.
Just keep doing compression.
I would not have known at the time when I got there that he had been doing CPR.
You're still doing compressions?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
he did not sound winded on the phone.
No, not at all. He didn't have to do chest compressions because she was already dead. He killed her, I think, before he left to go run alibi errands.
Despite Matt's inconsistencies, prosecutors feel they need more, so they bring in a new detective to help with the investigation.
My name is Abden Rodriguez, and in 2009, I was a criminal investigator for the McLennan County District Attorney's Office.
I hear they call you the human lie detector?
I guess because of some of the confessions that I was able to get.
Abden is asked to review the case and find evidence that would help indict Matt Baker.
I wanted to look at the interviews that had been done. There was a lot of deception, you know, and I could see how, especially Vanessa was doing it.
How many times a week would you talk, you think, prior to her death? Once every day for a couple hours, and maybe midday, or?
Sometimes a couple times a day.
As you can see, she's got her arms crossed and her legs crossed. That's a big red flag to me.
When she passed away that week, how were the conversations? Were they kind of the same way they were before?
They were really the same.
And I told him, and I said, look, the whole key to this case is going to be Vanessa Booth. She's pretty and very smooth and friendly, but at the same time, you know she's a liar.
We didn't know if she might have even been involved.
After interviewing Vanessa, Abden decides to subpoena her to testify in front of a grand jury.
I said, I'm gonna be there and I'm gonna listen to your testimony. And I said, and as soon as you lie, I'm gonna file charges on you.
When they brought Vanessa Bowles in for the grand jury, that was kind of a last-ditch effort.
So we're like, okay, let's see what happens.
As she and I were walking down the hall, she whispered to me, I'm gonna tell y'all everything.
Behind closed doors, Vanessa Bowles' grand jury testimony is the last step in getting Matt Baker indicted.
A former preacher charged with the murder of his wife.
Finally, Vanessa's testimony is the smoking gun.
Yes, it was. It was. She had everything we needed.
The civil case was dropped at that point in order to let the criminal case continue.
Matt Baker is charged with first-degree murder, accused of drugging and suffocating his wife Carrie and making it look like a suicide. He pleads not guilty.
Now, 4 years after his wife's death, Matt Baker is on trial for her murder.
That first day of the trial, the gallery was full.
We have a lot of people here in the gallery today.
True crime author Catherine Casey was in the courtroom every day.
I followed this story from the first time it hit the Texas newspapers. It was just so fascinating that this had unfolded, especially in Waco, in this city that's just dominated by religion.
Prosecutors began poking holes in Matt's story from that night, starting with the 911 call and his claim that he performed CPR on Carrie.
We're gonna go ahead and do compressions. You're gonna do it fast and hard 400 times. 400? 400 times.
Did any police officers arrive before you?
I was the first one there.
And what did he tell you?
He pulled her off the bed and put her on the floor in order to do CPR.
And what was his demeanor?
Very calm.
Did that strike you as odd?
Yes.
Even as a police officer, I would not be as calm as he was that night.
There was no way that in that period of time he was able to move her, dress her, and was doing CPR while he was having this conversation.
He wasn't sweating. He did not seem to be in any type of physical distress.
The computer expert found incredible evidence regarding searches, regarding suicide, regarding sleeping pills, and regarding Ambien, which became critical.
Can you tell the jury what was extracted from the muscle tissue of Carrie Baker?
We found 3 different drugs, phentermine, diphenhydramine, and zolpidem. And then zolpidem, and its common name is Ambien.
We never were able to determine where he got the Ambien from.
But we were able to determine that he was going to these websites and that he had gotten as far as putting Ambien in a cart.
Defense attorney Guy Gray pointed out that there was no evidence that Matt actually ordered Ambien from that website.
They went through the process of looking at it, but it was aborted and no purchase of Ambien was made.
Correct. Yes.
No further question.
You state your name for the jury, please.
Joanne Bristol.
Joanne Bristol, Carrie's grief counselor, testified about those comments she says Carrie made about Matt.
She said, "I'm thinking my husband is going to kill me," but she recanted the statement.
How do you analyze that, or what do you think about that?
I felt at that time that I knew this client very well. She had never misled me, and so when she said, "Oh, but I know he wouldn't do that," I believed her.
You didn't advise her to leave the house or move out. You didn't call law enforcement. You took that recanting as an accurate or true reflection of what was going on.
From her, yes.
Day 4 of the trial, and it's the prosecution's star witness who everyone is waiting to hear.
This case was one of those cases where all of the attention is focused on one witness, and that one witness was Vanessa Bowles.
The state calls Vanessa Bowles.
I remember looking at Matt more than looking at the jury. I wanted to see his response, and I think he was stunned.
Raise your right hand.
After years of denying their affair, Vanessa now admits that Matt began to pursue her even before Carrie died.
Please have a seat.
He started asking me things about my divorce and started telling me, "Whoever finds you is going to be a lucky man."
Did he say anything else unusual to you?
He came by and was kind of smiling. He said, "Oh, don't date other guys, just date your pastor," and kind of smiled.
Did he say anything else after that?
He said, "Will you really date your pastor? I've had a vasectomy, so I can't get you pregnant. Also, I don't have any STDs." And he also started telling me that because of Carrie's depression, as he stated, their sex life had been lacking.
And at the time, were you buying into what he was telling you about Carrie?
I was buying into everything. He was a complete, and still is, a manipulative liar who took me, my vulnerable state, and made me believe everything he said.
What happened then in early March as you and Matt started to spend Fridays at the Baker home?
And he asked if he could hold my hands to pray, and he did. Then afterwards, he started to kiss me. Then he just took my hand and led me to the bedroom.
Feeling guilty about being with her pastor, Vanessa says that Matt tried to reassure her.
I was extremely remorseful. I couldn't believe what just happened. He started saying, "It's okay, don't feel bad, just ask God to forgive you." And he said, in reality, he said, "I don't think God believes that anyone can just be with one person the rest of their lives."
After Carrie's death, Vanessa says Matt wanted more, perhaps even making her the next Mrs. Baker.
At some point, did you and Matt take the girls and go to Kay Jewelers in the mall?
We did. He stated that the girls wanted to go look at wedding rings for me.
Are you telling the jury that he was prepared at this point, a week or two after Carrie's death, to trade in Carrie's wedding set to get you a ring that you wanted?
Correct.
Matt had denied this in interviews, but a salesperson from the jewelry store corroborated Vanessa's account.
She tried on about 4 or 5 rings, asked his opinion. He just would tell her it didn't matter what he liked, it was what she liked, because she would be the one wearing it.
Vanessa then drops a bomb when she says not only did Matt want out of his marriage,
He said that if we ever fell so much in love that he would find a way out of it.
she also knows what happened to Carrie Baker.
I told him, "I'm gonna tell what you did." And he said, "You better not do that."
Vanessa testifies that Matt was openly plotting Carrie's death.
At what point did he start talking about planning her murder?
It was sometime mid-March. He said that, you know, she took sleeping pills every night, so maybe he could make it look like she overdosed on sleeping pills.
Vanessa Bowles talked about how Matt had ruminated about all the different ways he might kill Carrie.
He talked about making it look like she had hung herself. He talked about tampering with the brakes of her car, maybe doing a drive-by shooting.
What I saw from Vanessa's testimony was a man who was much more evil than even I believed he was.
She testified that Matt planned to kill Carrie with a tainted milkshake and then craft a suicide note.
1 to 2 weeks before Carrie's death, did he tell you that he had in fact tried that?
He did. He sent an email and said she took a sip of it and said that it tasted like lead. And so then he said he took a drink and said, "Oh, well, the ice cream must have been bad." He mentioned that he would leave a note and he said that he would type it. And I said, "That's never gonna work, you're gonna be caught." And he said, "Oh no, she types everything."
Did he say something else about what he believed other people thought about her mental state?
Oh, he said that no one would question it because of how depressed she was.
Vanessa stuns the courtroom when she says Matt Baker told her how he killed his wife.
He had gotten big horse pills. He said he emptied out all the contents and put crushed Ambien in them. He said he handcuffed her to the bed, started kissing her and touching her all over until she fell asleep. Then he said he got the pillow and put it over her face.
What did he say happened next?
He said that he thought she was dead, and he just said she just took one big ass for air, and he said, "Oh," and then put the pillow back on her face, except he did this with his hand to be sure that he suffocated her.
He didn't even feel enough remorse when he realized that she was still alive to rethink it. He just wanted to finish the job.
He said he typed out the suicide note, printed it, got her hand, and he said that he ran her hand all around the sides of it and put her fingerprints all over it. He said that he set everything up, locked the door, and left.
What was the reaction in the courtroom to Vanessa's testimony that not only did Matt Baker kill his wife, but that he had been planning it?
He had planning it, and the things that he did, people couldn't believe it. I think the more surprising thing was that they couldn't believe that she's up there telling all this.
So you knew that Friday, April 7th of 2006 was the day that he was going to try it again?
I knew he was going to try it then, yes.
All right. And you didn't report that to anybody?
No.
Vanessa says she had second thoughts about Matt and the cover-up of Carrie's murder.
Not only had I known about this and not done the right thing, in truth, who would believe me? He was a preacher. And so I felt like I was stuck.
She then chose to break it off with him.
I decided that I didn't care what he told me anymore, that we didn't worship the same God. So I called him. I told him, "I never want to see you again." And he became irate. He started saying, "I killed my wife for you, and now you're leaving."
In a move Vanessa believed was meant to intimidate her, she testifies that Matt sent her an MP3 of a song called Dirty Little Secret.
He was talking about the murder plan, and he later referenced it, stating, "I need to keep my mouth shut. Don't tell anyone, or you'll be just another regret."
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Bowles.
The defense pressed Vanessa on why she was now coming clean about everything.
How would we know to believe you, Vanessa?
Because what do I have to gain from this right now? I'm setting things right. I made a mistake here because a manipulative liar wearing the mask of God came into my life. And this testimony is going to put him where he needs to be.
It's now up to the jury to determine where Matt needs to be.
Folks, we can't protect her from harm. The only thing now we can do is give her justice.
Then turned and pointed to Matt and said
to convict this murdering minister and find him guilty for one reason only, because he is guilty.
The indictment says there's got to be facts of drugs and a pillow. And the only way you can get those facts is by believing Vanessa Bulls. And she is just not credible.
I think a lot of people struggled with Vanessa.
I mean, she had done horrible things, but I think it really helped her credibility when she was on the stand because she didn't try to fade her own culpability.
I think Vanessa was absolutely the key to the case.
We've reached a unanimous verdict, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Matt D. Baker, guilty of the offense of murder as alleged in the indictment.
For the sentencing phase of the trial, the jury gets to hear additional testimony.
They came back and had witnesses from his past come and talk to us about things that he had done.
One by one, women testify about sexual misconduct they say they endured from Matt Baker.
He came up from behind me, put his hand on my breast. I pushed him away, told him no. He tried to kiss me, told him no.
I remember having to use all my strength to try to keep him off of me and from taking my clothes off.
Including Laura Wilson, the student trainer who worked alongside him in college.
He took his hand and began running it up my thigh and between my legs.
I think as a jury, to see, what all he's been doing since he was a teenager made us 100% feel like that we had definitely made the right decision.
The jury sentenced Matt Baker to 65 years in prison. And finally, Carrie's mother has a chance to confront him directly.
I'm talking to you, Matt, today, okay? You haven't looked at me in almost 4 years. Can you look at me today?
So what does Matt have to say from behind bars?
Yeah, we asked him to. We gave him a call.
The sentence of the court that you be confined for a term of 65 years. There's some victim impact statements given by the family of the victim. You may proceed.
I'm talking to you, Matt, today, okay? You haven't looked at me in almost 4 years. Can you look at me today? For a little while, okay?
But she did talk to him directly, and he looked down.
Matt, she loved you. And then you took her from us, Matt. You discarded her like she was yesterday's trash. You murdered the mother of your children. But love trumps evil. I don't know why, but I felt pity for him.
I truly believe in my innocence. I believe the jury made a mistake in this.
After his sentencing, 2020 speaks with Matt Baker again, this time in prison, where he finally admits to his affair with Vanessa, but continues to maintain his innocence.
I'm coming clean on the lying about Vanessa. I made a mistake. I'm human. I made a mistake there. I should not have ever got involved in that. I was having a tough spot in my marriage, and I took the chicken way out. But I would never have hurt my wife. I never did. I never laid a hand on her, ever.
Their mother was erased from them. They need to know she loved them. And she didn't leave them by choice.
A year and a half after Matt's conviction, Linda was given custody of her granddaughters.
It was a long journey for the girls to understand what had actually happened to their mother.
Carrie Baker didn't kill herself. She was murdered.
He was a Baptist pastor, preacher.
He was a predator.
I think he's a dark angel.
That you may fear the Lord your God.
You get to be the hero during daylight and sneak around in the dark and be evil.
What do you make of the fact that now, nearly 20 years after the case, Matt Baker still maintains his innocence?
He's one of those people that can just lie and believe in himself that he's innocent.
The real hero in this is Linda Doolin. She fought for her child.
A mother. A mother's will.
It's strong.
Determination.
There's nothing like it, really.
It touches you.
It does.
Why?
Because I have children. And these are hard things. Linda Doolin is a brave, strong woman. I'll always admire that about her.
We love each other, and we knew Carrie did not take her life, and we weren't going to sit back until somebody would listen to us.
She was an amazing mother, and she would fight for any of us. And I just wanted everybody to know the truth.
Carrie's family is still so heartbroken over their loss, but committed to remembering the joy she brought them all. We should point out tonight that Matt Baker hasn't seen his daughter since he went to prison, but he hopes they'll visit one day.
As for Baker, David, he has exhausted all of his state appeals. For an inside look at tonight's 2020, join me for our brand new podcast, 2020, The After Show. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.